Apologies. Yeah, please everyone do sit down. Okay. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to all the councillors and any members of the public or other officers who are attending this evening. I will read the announcements to start off the meeting. So if we do hear the fire alarm, which hopefully we won't, please do make your way to the nearest fire exits, which are clearly marked. And please do ensure that your mobile phone and any other devices are switched off or are on silent. The meeting is being filmed for live or subsequent broadcast, and by entering the council chamber and using the public seating areas, you are consenting to being filmed. If this presents any difficulty, please do inform Democratic Services. We've got Jenna here tonight who's supporting us if you do have any issues with that. If you are speaking, please do approach the microphone as close as possible and speak loudly and clearly. It's natural to want to turn to face others while speaking, but this affects the sound quality. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and wait for an invitation from the chair, and do remember to turn your microphone off when you finish speaking. And when referring to a specific report, page or slide, please do mention the report, page or slide so that all members have a clear understanding of what is being discussed. And I just wanted to say a reminder to members that we've got a domestic abuse and sexual violence awareness training, which is scheduled for the 8th of November at 6 o'clock. It will be taking place as a hybrid session, so please do confirm to Democratic Services if you are planning to attend online or in person in the council chamber. So I will move on now to apologies. I have received apologies for absence from councillors Craig, Cruz, Trina Davis, Stephen Davies, Gray, Miles, Piercy, Hurst, Kay and Prenter. Please raise your hand if there are any further apologies. Yes, Councillor Green.
Sorry, I might repeat a few, but I'll just go through the list. Nick Hurst, Trina Davis, Victoria Gray, Julie Job, Lorraine Patrick, Gordon Craig, Stephen Davis and Dave Mossman.
Thank you. Any other apologies? No. Okay. And moving on to declarations of interest. Do any members have any declarations of interest? No. Okay. Right, so item 3 is the minutes of the previous council meeting, which was held on the 20th of July 2023. No one has any comments on that, so we'll move to acceptance of the minutes. Is someone happy to propose? Councillor Ross, and second, Councillor Braun. Please, I think we're just doing a hand raising. Is it not electronic? Yeah, please raise your hands if you're happy to support acceptance of the minutes. No. Any against? No. Okay. Right. Okay. I will sign those. I've got a copy. Thank you. I'll do that in a moment. What? Do you want me to sign it? Oh, it's here. Sorry. Yep. Okay. Take those. Okay, I'll move on to announcements now. And we have a few announcements. It's my sad duty to report that Jim White, who many would know was chair of the Cotswolds Canal Trust, has sadly passed away. I know many of you will have worked closely with him, and our thoughts are with his family at this extremely sad time. I'd like to invite councillors who'd like to say a few words in remembrance of Jim, but just before I do, as chair and previously as leader of the council, I did work very closely with him for a number of years on the Cotswold Canal Board, and he was really so integral to the success of the canal, and I think he'll be sorely missed. His work was really exceptional, and I know when I moved to the district 20 odd years ago and someone mentioned the canal project to me, it was a very obscure project at that time, and there were all those people who held the flame and who were so enthusiastic about it, and he was one of those people, and he was also just a really lovely, kind individual. So I know we're all very sad to hear of his passing. So I know a few councillors did want to speak in memory of Jim, so just raise your hand and indicate if you'd like to. Councillor Green. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, that's yours, really. I'm sorry, I thought you. I just wanted to say that I worked very closely with Jim when he first became chairman of the trust, back when I was responsible for the canal in the very first time. And Jim is a very personable person. And the trust will sadly miss him, because I think, as Dawn has just said, his heart and soul was in it completely and utterly. It became part of his life. I had the privilege of being with Jim on a couple on behalf of this council and the trust when we received a couple of awards, the Wallbridge Lock opening, and then I think it was the best project of the year at that time, the best restoration project, which was one was in Birmingham and one was in London. And Jim was so enthusiastic. He sat there like we all did, a little boy all wound up waiting for Christmas when they were making the announcements. And he was like everybody else when he made the announcement. It was, yes! And we were all a bit like it. Someone referred it to the footballer who played for Chelsea and said it was his moment or whatever. I can't remember his name now. Drogba, that's right. It was his Drogba moment, it was said. And he was a very personal guy. But the trust, and particularly the canal project, I think will miss him dearly.
Thank you, Councillor Pearson. Yeah, Councillor Green.
I've got some words from Councillor Nick Hurst. He wanted to say that Kathy and I first met Jim and Caroline decades ago when we used to go walking together with the Stroud Rambling Club. We hit it off immediately as he was a great companion and always an interesting conversationalist. We put the world right on many occasions. Jim put a lot of his time into other people's lives, not just as a friend, but always ready to help out if needed. He was totally community-minded. We had kept in touch. Now that long walks have melted into the past through his work with the canal restoration, a project which was right up his street in terms of interest and the knowledge and experience he brought to it. I guess the canal project would still have happened if Jim had not been involved, but perhaps not as efficiently or quickly in its latest phase, nor as well directed as he ensured it has been. I am sure others will speak about that. His contribution will remain a lasting legacy. For now, we must hope that Caroline and the family remain supported through their loss. Jim, it has been a privilege and an honour to have known you. As leader of the Conservative group, I just want to also, on behalf of the group, to offer Jim's wife and his family our heartfelt condolences. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else who wishes to? Yes, Catherine.
Thank you, Chair. I didn't know Jim quite as long as some people in the chamber, but I have worked with him for the past year on the Canal Project Board. And I was so sorry to hear about his sudden death. It was a real loss for all of us. Jim was an excellent chair of the Cotswold Canal Trust for the past 8 years and previously vice chair for 3 years before that, as well as his work for the Trust as a volunteer. He brought huge experience as a mechanical engineer to the role, and he played a really important part in the work of the Trust. I note from the Cotswold Canal Trust that he designed and arranged production of the more recent cast iron paddle gear for some of the locks, as well as other projects, so he was very practically involved. He was also great at the work that we had on the board, and he was a really strong advocate for the canal project in many different areas and a really fantastic and collaborative chair of the Cotswold Canal Trust. He was a great partner with the council on the Cotswold Canals Connected board, and I really feel that we will miss him. I know his colleagues in the trust and more widely will as well. So just again like to pass on my condolences to his whole family and to all his colleagues in the Cotswold Canals Trust who have lost an excellent chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Turner.
I think I'll just echo really everything that everyone has said. I've being on the board with Jim, been immensely impressed by his commitment to the project. He will be greatly missed, and it really won't feel the same without him. I hope we can find a way to commemorate him in some way through the project. But yes, pass my condolences to his family.
Thank you. And Councillor Layfield.
Thanks, Chair. I have a few words from the Stroud Valleys Canal Company that they've asked me to read. The SVCC is deeply saddened by the death of Jim White. He'll be sorely missed by all those working for the restoration of the Stroud Water Navigation and the Thames and Severn Canal. He's worked tirelessly to enable the reconnection of Stroud and Stonehouse to the 2,500-mile national canal network, and to enable the transformation of what was often a local eyesore into a well-loved wildlife corridor and a workable canal. Jim was a highly qualified mechanical engineer who was not only interested in the engineering aspects of restoring a canal, but he was also mindful of making the canal and the towpath accessible and usable by as many people as possible. Most recently, his engineering expertise was focused on lock gate design, using novel material that would allow easy operation by persons of limited strength. He was also interested in novel solutions to ensure that the entire towpath could be navigated by wheelchairs, prams and mobility scooters, as well as walkers and cyclists. Not only was his canal interest local, he was a strong advocate for the complete restoration of the Thames and Severn Canal, which once again linked the great rivers of the Severn and Thames, and this could provide a conduit for the transfer of fresh water from west to east of the UK. So Jim, your parochial and national interests will be sorely missed, and you will be a great loss to the canal family. However, your legacy will be marked by the reinstatement of Stroud and Stonehouse as canal towns, and possibly in connection with the national water supply security. Some legacy indeed.
Thank you. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't going to say anything because everybody has been so eloquent around this chamber, but I just wanted to add that Mike Richer, who is one of our tenant reps on our housing committee, also is manager of the Cotswold Canal bookshops, both in Brimscombe and Stonehouse. And he did say on Saturday there was a real sense of sadness for people coming in and passing on their condolences and love to everyone. He was a real gentleman, Jim. You couldn't call him anything else. Always a twinkle in his eye. A really lovely man, and he will be so missed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for all your warm words. Is anyone else? I don't think anyone else wishes to speak. Okay. In a moment, I'll invite the leader to make any announcements. Before I do, I have been asked by some of the councillors if we could perhaps comment on what's been happening recently in the world, and I'll just say a few words. So, on your behalf as chair, we've all been shocked and saddened by events in Israel and Palestine, the awful, brutal violence and loss of life, especially of so many children. There may be people within our district who have been personally affected, so I'd like to express, on behalf of the council, our greatest sympathies for them. I'd like you to join me in a moment of reflection and let our thoughts and prayers be with those who are held hostage, those who have tragically lost their lives, those who are displaced and facing an uncertain future, and those who have lost their loved ones. Let us hope a time will come when there is peace and security for everyone who calls that troubled part of the world their home. So I hope, councillors, you just join me for a short pause for reflection. I don't think we need to stand, but just for a few seconds, just to reflect. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. I'll now invite the leader to make some announcements.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to provide a brief update on the local plan, as today we have received a further letter from the planning inspectors. So just to recap, for those members who may not have followed it all the way through, our local plan was submitted to the Planning Inspectorate for independent examination in October 2021. Hearing sessions commenced in the spring this year, and in the spring and the summer there were 18 days of hearing sessions. The inspectors called a summer break in July, and we were expecting a further 5 or so hearing sessions to be scheduled this autumn. On the 4th of August, we received a letter from the inspectors setting out 3 main areas of concern: specific transport issues with the Wislow and Sharpness site allocations, and concerns over the strategic road network at junctions 12 and 14 of the M5. The inspectors asked us to consider withdrawing the plan. The council replied on the 29th of August, and we asked for a 6-month pause in the examination to address the concerns raised and follow up with an action plan on the 12th of September, setting out the work that would be carried out during that 6-month pause. The inspectors replied on the 3rd of October, and some further questions for the council and questions for National Highways, Gloucestershire County Council and South Gloucestershire Council were sent to them about the action plan, and they requested that we submit this further information by the 17th of October. So the council and each of our partners responded to that request from the inspectors, and our response demonstrated that 70% of the plan's identified housing need, the next 5 to 10 years of supply, could be delivered without requiring junction improvements. And that gives a number of options for achieving a sound local plan, including early review. So today's response from the inspectors still doesn't answer our request for a pause, but it does ask us to work on a joint action plan with National Highways, Gloucestershire County Council and South Gloucestershire Council, and to answer some further questions by the 10th of November or a later date by agreement. The inspectors have given clearance for all the correspondence mentioned, including today's letter, to be published on the examination page of our website, and these are now all available for everyone to see. We have further meetings arranged with both councillors and officers at Gloucestershire County Council tomorrow and South Gloucestershire Council on Monday, and with officers at National Highways and neighbouring councils to work together on finding solutions, as our inspectors recognise, and we all recognise, that motorway junction capacity is not an issue that the District Council can resolve alone, and it's an issue that will affect us all. As you'll be aware, the Council agreed to submit the local plan to the planning inspectors, and until we have a clear steer from the planning inspectors on the way forward, we cannot change course because the local plan is now in their hands. I think we all appreciate the importance of having a local plan in place so that we can avoid a situation of planning by appeal, and we can make sure that development comes forward at appropriate locations with the infrastructure and community benefits that are needed to support new homes and employment sites. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. The Chief Executive's told me she hasn't got any announcements, so I'm going to move straight on to public question time. And we've received public questions from Steve Willits, who is in attendance this evening. So I'd like to invite you to come. Yes, thank you. And the questions will be answered to by the Chair of Environment Committee, Councillor Chloe Turner. So, yes, you've got the public speaking area there. So, Mr Willits, would you like to start by... Are you happy with the microphone? That's all fine. You'd like to start by asking your first question. Thank you.
Hello, yes, thank you, Chair. My name is Steve Willits, resident of Cam. The background to my question is, or my questions is, the inspectors, in their response to Stroud District Council's request for a 6-month pause, said a number of things. There are risks in terms of time and cost. Also said there is no guarantee that the work undertaken will fully address the concerns outlined, and also following the pause the inspectors could still be in a position of writing to advise that withdrawing the plan remains the best option. So the first question is to do with budget and costs. What was the budget set to deliver the district plan? How much has been spent to date? And what now is the projected spend for the 6 months pause plan proposed to the inspectors to try to deliver a sound plan?
Councillor, yeah.
Thank you, Mr Willits, and good evening. I'll just read our response to that question. Sorry. There was no budget set explicitly in 2017 to deliver the new local plan. There is an annual budget to deliver the range of planning strategy services, including the local plan. That budget for 23-24 is £103,200, not including staffing resources. The Council also received £100,000 as part of a former Gloucestershire growth deal with government to fund traffic modelling. The total costs for preparing the local plan to date from 2017 to 2023 are approximately £787,300, including £140,400 covering inspectors' costs, but not including staffing costs. The costs of the action plan will depend primarily on the costs of further design work on the M5 junction improvement schemes, which have yet to be finalised.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary question to that?
Given the letter that has just been received from the inspectors, is there any modification or update to that answer at all? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Willits. No, that answer still stands.
Would you like to ask your second question?
Okay, thank you. The second question is in respect of resources. What additional resource and capabilities, internal and external, were used to develop the pause plan, are proposed to deliver the pause plan, and what is the impact of having to carry out the pause plan on other priorities and work plans? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just read our response. The action plan was developed by officers of the council with support from the council's transport consultant. The action plan identifies those organisations who will be involved in its delivery. See the action plan second column. As the primary purpose of the council's local plans team is to deliver the local plan, and the action plan will take place during a pause in the examination process, the delivery of the action plan will not impact on other priorities or work plans.
Thank you. And do you have a supplementary?
Yes, please, Chair. You've not particularly addressed the question about capabilities and perhaps ways of working in that answer. I understand Council has a priority for community resilience and well-being, strengthen and support communities to feel connected, and therefore I'm maybe slightly surprised that working together is not seen as a high priority within that plan, especially given that the inspector yet again has reinforced the issue of the need to work together. Thank you.
Thank you for that supplementary. Our work in relation to the action plan is very much guided by planning regulations and by the PIN's procedural regulations, and indeed by the instructions of the inspector. So we will be collaborating and working together with the partners that the inspector has indicated that they would like us to work together with, and we will continue to follow that approach as we move through this next phase.
We'd like to ask a third question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The final question is to do with risks. Can you state the key risks that Stroud District Council has considered and explain the actions that will be taken to minimise those risks, both in terms of the plan itself and the ways of working and engagement to deliver a sound plan? The consequences to our communities if the work still does not satisfy the inspectors, and what contingency plans and budgets we be put in place to minimise those consequences. Thank you.
Thank you again. And our answer, the key risks associated with the preparation of the local plan have changed over time, depending on the specific risks identified at each stage. At the current time, the key risk is not achieving a positive outcome from the recent correspondence with the inspectors, and with that, the consequential risks associated with not having an up-to-date policy framework to manage the development management process. The actions associated with reducing the likelihood of this risk occurring involve seeking to address the inspector's concerns as set out in their letter of the 4th of August and subsequent letter of 2nd of October through working with identified partners on a series of actions as set out in the action plan of 12th of September. Beyond these actions, other actions include attending reconvened hearing sessions, if allowed, to put forward the Council's case on the remaining matters, agreeing with the inspectors a list of potential modifications to resolve soundness matters, and undertaking public consultation on these modifications in accordance with regulations and PIN's procedures. Should the plan be found unsound by the inspectors, there will be a risk of planning by appeal, i.e. speculative development being promoted in the absence of a strategic policy framework. There would be two broad contingencies to mitigate the impact: a programme and budget for commencing a new local plan to fill the policy gap, and an approach to managing development in the interim, which will involve a number of actions, including seeking to maintain a 5-year land supply by approving appropriate development through the development management process.
Thank you. And your supplementary.
Yes, please, Chair. Is there not, though, a serious risk of having to rework the whole spatial strategy to resolve not just the motorway junction issues, but the other points that the inspectors have made? That's going to be very difficult in the timescale, and so a real risk that the inspectors will declare the plan unsound? Thank you.
Thank you for your supplementary. I just revert to what the leader was referring to earlier about the fact that we have also suggested a number of other recommendations, including an early review reflecting the fact that a very significant amount of the housing that is proposed under the plan can be delivered without material impact on the motorway junctions. So while we can't ignore the risk that the plan will be found unsound by the inspectors, we continue to feel positive about our correspondence with them. Thank you.
Thank you. And
Thank you, Chair.
Thank
and thank
you.
you for the opportunity to ask the questions.
Thank you very much. So we have also some members' questions from Paul Coop. Is that Coop or Coop? Yes, that's right, yes. But he's not able to attend this evening. And so if everyone's happy with that, we'll just take the questions and answers will be taken as read, and we'll send the responses to Mr. Coop, and they will be published on the website. And I'll move on now to member questions. And so we have quite a few member questions. And so I'm going to ask if members would be happy that we take the questions and answers as read, and that we would move straight to the supplementary questions. And so I'll be starting off with Councillor Chris Evans, if you'd be happy to do so. Okay, thank you very much. So do you want to go to your supplementary question? It's going to be answered by, I think it was Councillor Becky Oldman. Yeah.
I don't have a supplementary question, Chair. I'm satisfied with the answer there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I will move on to, actually, we don't have Councillor Patrick here, do we? So, no. So in which case, we'll take her question and answer as read also. And then, Councillor Green, are you happy to move to your supplementary question also? You don't have any. Okay, all right. I think that brings us to the end of the member questions, which are all available to read if you want to read the questions and answers. So I'm going to move on now to the first. We've got two motions. So the first motion, which is item 7A, and this is the motion on inclusion of swift bricks in new buildings to protect wildlife. And I'm going to invite Councillor Lindsay Green as proposer to present the motion.
Thank you, Chair. Common swifts are in perilous decline in the UK. There has been a downward trajectory, with the numbers falling by 57%, as recorded by the British Trust of Ornithology. Insect decline can also be attributed to this, along with the loss of nesting sites, from where building was once permeable to a wide range of wildlife, from bats, bees, sparrows and swifts. Nesting boxes are being installed around the country on some buildings, but replacing nest holes that have been blocked over a period of decades does require a strategic approach. This is where swift bricks can come in. They are hollow, rectangular boxes made of breathable material. Integrating these into walls will not compromise insulation, and the only part visible is a small entry hole. House sparrows, starlings and swifts are all at risk because the holes they once used are disappearing. Swift or nest bricks are inexpensive and need minimal maintenance. As this council has committed to increasing biodiversity and championing nature from the motion at last full council meeting from Councillor Layfield and Councillor Turner, this will be the natural next step to make sure that we are playing our part in protecting our wildlife. This motion is designed to be an opt-out approach, so the eyes are on this. And if there is evidence to prove that they are not needed, at least the subject has been addressed. I would like to urge everyone to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. And Councillor Hayden-Jones, seconder, would you like to speak now or reserve the right to speak later?
I'll reserve the right if I could, Chair, please.
I've just been informed by the monitoring officer. Did you wish to proceed with this one, or you had an alternative?
Yeah, it's not on the screen.
Ah, okay. This is the one that you're speaking to now. Okay, okay.
The amendment as in the pack has been, the motion as in the pack has been amended by Councillor Green.
Right, okay. So this is the amended motion that we're on now. Okay, apologies for that. Sorry, should have had that one up on the screen. Okay, Councillor Hayden-Jones, would you like to speak now or reserve the right to speak?
I'll reserve the right to speak.
Okay, okay. In which case, we'll move on to questions. Are there any questions from members? Yes, Councillor.
Forgive my stupidity.
What do you mean by this is an opt-out?
Yeah, so what I mean by that is that from what I understand, our current, the current way that we do it is that we look at applications on a case-by-case basis and look to see whether or not that's needed. From my point of view, what I would like to see is that this is looked at across the board on all applications. And if there is clear evidence to prove that it is not needed, then that's fine. Does that answer? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, okay. Are we not? Okay. All right, so we'll move to debate now. There are no further questions. But are there any amendments proposed to the?
No.
Yes, so Councillor Baxendale.
I think probably
Yes, I have an amendment. I assume this is the right time to propose that. Yep.
Yes, so
Okay. Yes, the amendment is up there. Does anybody really need me to read it out, or is everybody familiar with it? Basically, what the amendment does, if everyone, do you want me to actually read it, Lindsay? Do you want me to actually read the amendment? Okay, all right. We'll take this read then. Basically, the difference is that what you're asking for is, sorry, am I speaking to it now?
yes, you are. Yes, to explain the amendment. Yeah.
Just checking the procedure. Sorry? Sorry, I haven't got my long distance glasses with me. This is the change motion from Lindsay, I assume.
So, Councillor Baxendale, is this one here the one that you're proposing? Okay.
can I just help with a bit of clarity?
Yes.
I think we're getting a bit confused. So the motion that was in the original agenda was the original motion submitted by Councillor Green. The first motion so that was that motion. The next motion that you saw on the screen is the motion that Councillor Green and her seconder amended themselves, which they are perfectly entitled to do up until the debate starts. So that is the substantive motion that we're talking about when Councillor Green was introducing the motion. Yeah? And what this has been seconded. Hang on.
We'll come to you in a minute. I'll just let the monitoring officer finish explaining it.
Councillor Baxendale now wants to move an amendment to that version of the motion, which you can see. So the red is what Councillor Green amended from the original motion, and the blue is what the amendment from Councillor Baxendale is. Does that make sense?
Councillor Jones, did you want to come?
Just for a little bit more clarity, if possible, Lindsay and I produced the original one. We received a friendly amendment suggestion. We accepted almost all of that, just changed the wording very slightly. But because that's a little bit confused, I can't quite see whether that was the adapted version we had. So that one went back to Councillor Turner, presumably. So that's where we were. So we would have accepted all that with those few adaptations. We're just not quite sure what the new version is. Please help us. I don't know.
Yeah, I think. Yes, count the chief executives.
Sorry, Councillor Baxendale, would you mind just clarifying, is that your amendment? We've tried to simplify it a little bit. So the black text is Councillor Green's motion as proposed after it was amended. The blue text should be your amendments to that. So please could you confirm that that is what you think you're looking at, just that we can all be clear?
That appears to be. I haven't got my long distance glasses on.
Oh.
If
Chloe and Catherine could perhaps quickly read it through with me just to check, just in case we pass something that isn't what we intend.
We think it is, but it's just to make it slightly
make this
clearer,
be
you know,
absolutely-
taking councillor Jones' point that it looks awfully confused when
Yes.
you've got the black, the
When you
red
had
and the
black,
blue text.
And the red, that was even more.
That's just trying to simplify it a little bit, so
If
hopefully
we could
that
just have a
helps you.
moment, so three of us could just read it through and quickly be sure that we're absolutely okay with it. Yeah, you're okay? Okay.
Okay, so just to clarify, so that we
People with
have
better eyesight than me have said, yes, that's definitely right.
on the screen now, we have the motion text with your amendments included. So do you have a seconder for, yes, councillor Brown? Okay. And do you wish to speak now or reserve the right?
Yes, I'll speak briefly now. I strongly support the intent of the original motion and its amended versions. As a bird watcher, I'm very conscious of the decline of swifts and of other bird species as a general part of the degradation of our natural environment and the loss of habitats for birds, swifts in particular. I love to see them, bands of them screaming overhead in the summer. But the motion seemed to need amending to comport with current policy, which I think the originally amended one does not, because it does not seem to acknowledge the current policy, hence this further amendment. I hope that's clear enough.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I ask if the proposer and seconder would be happy to accept the amendment?
We would in principle, but with the second point where it says to require, oh, it's disappeared, to require renovation works to incorporate species-specific enhancements such as swift houses, bricks, as a condition on all suitable properties. Your amendment to it does not actually make reference to the renovation side of things. So would it help if we could have something in there, because I obviously understand that there must be issues with that from your side. Would you be willing to accept that being a separate thing with saying that, saying that it's only for renovations on works, renovations that require planning permission?
So, sorry, to be clear, unless I'm misunderstanding, you're saying that you want the bit about renovations left in?
Yes, if we can keep that in, obviously your amendment where it says complete the species specific, to leave that in, I'm not asking for that to be taken out because I do agree, but to require the renovation works that need planning permission.
Councillor Baxendale, are you happy to accept? Well, we're trying to the form of words that their officers are putting on the screen now, see if that's acceptable.
Not really. It's renovation work, new build, they're all development. It's I'm not quite sure how development management would work around that. I've been told that we plan to stick to our amendment as it is. I'm not sure.
Okay. I think in which case, though, we don't.
That changes the situation really.
I think, bearing in mind we're in the middle of the meeting now, I think probably you need to proceed along the process, otherwise people will get quite confused. So I suggest that what we have on the table now is an amended motion, and Councillor Green, you're happy to accept most of it, but not that element. So in fact, we need to move on to have a debate on whether we accept the amendment. Can we just clarify that we've got it on the screen the right one, which is the one with Councillor Baxendale's amendment in there? Okay, thank you. We don't need calling out. Thank you. That's right. So what we've got currently on the screen is the amended with the amendment, and we're now going to have a debate on whether we accept that amendment. Okay, anyone wishes to speak on that? Councillor Turner.
Thank you. I just wanted to, sorry. Yeah. I just wanted to clarify that the reason that we were not seeking to accept that particular amendment was because renovation's already included in the first bullet. The development management does not distinguish between a renovation and a new build. Every planning application is treated in the same way. So therefore, all suitable properties, it includes where that property is being renovated or whether it's being built from scratch. So we didn't see the need for those words, and it implied that there was something new happening, which isn't the case, because in relation to all suitable properties, species-specific guidance is already being given. So that's why we're not happy to accept it, because it's sort of implying that there's something new required when it's already happening. So thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to speak? Yes, Councillor Studdard Kennedy. Just indicate if you do wish to speak.
Sorry. Madam Chairman, I've sat here listening to two people trying to agree on a project that most people seem to support. May I suggest, as a practical a result of this, that actually you adjourn this, send the two parties into the committee room and let them come back with an agreed proposal, because at the present moment, nobody's going to be happy and everybody wants to support it. Oh, and one other thing, just as a matter of interest, are we, a monitoring officer, able to require people to do this or merely request them?
Well, if it would be better than having to go through the whole business of a debate and the vote and potentially we don't agree to do that, then it's up to you if you wish to have, we could have a very short 5-minute adjournment to, no, you don't wish to. Okay, we'll proceed then. Okay. All right, I'll just continue with the debate. Sorry?
Councillor Jones is indicating.
Yes, Councillor Jones next, and then... Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Having had a conversation with Councillor Green and with Councillor Turner's useful clarification there, I think we would be prepared to accept the amended text because it reflects what we're hoping to achieve.
Good. Okay, thank you for that. So in which case we're going to refer to, I've got a very handy flow diagram here, which is very helpful in this case. So I'll pause that debate then, but I know Councillor Fenton and others, so you'll have an opportunity to in the main debate. So in which case, thank you very much. The amendment has been accepted, in which case we now are going to move back to the debate on the motion as it stands on the screen. So anyone who'd like to speak on this text which we have now, which includes all the amendments so far. Yes, Councillor Pearson.
My hand up prior to that.
Apologies.
Before the agreement. I would just like to say that having sat in this chamber for 17 years, I have never come across once so much silliness over some very simple motion that benefits everybody. And I'm sorry I have to say that. When we're arguing over single words about things that is important to lots and lots of people, to sit and waste the time we have on that subject after 17 years, I do not believe that us, people that have been here a long time, have ever seen so much silliness.
Would you put your speaker on, please? We can't hear you.
Gee, sorry. Does anyone else wish to speak in the debate? Yes, Councillor Baxendale.
Yes, just to reply to Keith, it's not about silliness, it's about how we go about it. Planning has rules and regulations, and if we get stuff wrong in planning, there are repercussions. And the way the original motion was worded could have caused us some quite serious problems. So we need to make sure that we're doing it. As Martin said, I think everybody's aware that swifts are an iconic species which is in massive decline, and it does need action. There's no doubt about that. But we need to be doing it in the way that's best and the way that's best for all species that are in decline, not just species. So we need a mixture of mitigation, a mixture of built-in features on houses that are being done up and new builds to make sure that biodiversity decline is reversed. And simply doing a blanket motion on putting swift bricks into every, as our biodiversity officer has said, isn't the best answer. We need to look at the evidence, and it doesn't, in planning, it doesn't work the way Lindsay was saying it. We don't look for a lack of evidence to decide what we're going to do. we have to look for evidence that what we're doing is needed. Otherwise, we end up with all kinds of problems, and that's the way we do it. Planning is, as evident, everything should be, is planning is evidence-based. And the way this has ended up now is fine. This is the way it should have been at the beginning. So if it's not a silly waste of time, it's about getting planning working in a way that doesn't cause us more problems and that actually achieves what we want. And in this case, we want to achieve help for the Swifts. And if anybody's looking for a good book about Swifts to read, this is excellent. Mark Cocker on Midsummer's Day, Swifts and the Story of Life on Earth. It's an absolutely brilliant read. And hopefully we will achieve what we're trying to achieve with swifts and all other species that are in decline. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Layfield.
Just to say I welcome my, beg your pardon. Just to say I welcome my Green colleagues tightening it up of a well-intended but flawed motion from the Tories. I think we should support this.
Thank you. Councillor Oldham.
Thank you. I would also like to support this amended motion, and I also think, as Martin pointed out, it's extremely important to clarify words, even if they are just single words. I just wanted to put a little shout out in for Jill Stacey, who is a local Swift champion. She's absolutely fantastic, and she's done so much work to get Swift boxes all over the place in the district. She's currently, with help from funding from Councillor Chloe Turner, trying to implement Swift boxes on Brimscombe Church, and it's just wonderful to see all of her efforts and her genuine joy at the Swifts nesting in her own myriad boxes that she has all over her own house. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Councillor Housden next.
Thank you, Chair. It's a point of clarity, really, because so that first motion is obviously effectively completely changed. And what I want to just double check is that in the pack, the legal advice we had on the first motion was that it could potentially lead us to risk of appeal and legal challenges. Are our legal team happy with this motion as it's now written? Because the way I read that, it still leaves us open to interpretation, given the state, obviously, of the local plan. Now, my view is, if we vote for that motion, even though it's been amended, actually, I think we're still open to legal challenge. So I just want to get some clarity from legal on that, because I think if we vote for this, as that is written now, my view is that we could be leaving ourselves open to further legal challenge, given the state of the local plan. So if we could get some clarity on that, I don't think we should be voting on that as it is, unless I hear different from legal.
Well, thank you, Councillor. We're sort of in debate now, not in questions, but I do know that the monitoring officer has seen all the amendments and so is confident around the text that's before you. Councillor Sutter Kennedy.
I didn't get a verbal answer. I got a nod of the head to the question that I asked. So would the monitoring officer be clear? Are we in a position to require anybody to do anything in this regard, or can we merely request it?
I'm happy, we can take the question, but I would remind members we have questions and now we're in debate, and I'm sure Councillor Sutter Kennedy knows that very well. So in this instance, we will. And also, no, I don't know why on this side of the chamber we have so much calling out. It isn't really necessary. Councillor Tipper, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand. Anyone is entitled to speak in the chamber. So thank you for that. I think you should probably know better. You've been here longer than many of us. I will ask the monitoring officer to respond on that. But I'll just remind you all know very well how it works. So I think it's just for the sake of confusion, when we've got questions. When it's debate, it's debate. Thank you.
Okay, yes, good. Thank you, Chair. Okay, so just to clarify, obviously the original motion that was in the papers was about requiring all new buildings to have Swift bricks, requiring renovation works to have, so it's all around requirements to do things. The difference with this one, which is what removes the risk around it, is that this one says about, it does use the word require, but it says as a condition. So the difference is, each condition is considered on its individual merits. So every time you want to apply a condition, you have to pass the legal test to be able to do that. So what this is saying is we will put a condition on suitable properties. So where it is suitable to apply that condition will be applied. It's not a blanket, let's put this on every single property. That's the difference, which is what removes the risk that was associated with the original motion as drafted.
Thank you very much for explaining that. Councillor Braun.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really pleased that we have come to a solution on this and we've got a motion that everyone can get behind. I did read the officer advice on the motion, which said that it would be exceptionally difficult to implement, and I think we would all like to see more support for Swifts, so I'm glad that we've got this new wording. I'm sure Councillor Tucker and Councillor James would join me in celebrating the particular love for Swifts which happens in Wootton Under Edge, and the work that is undertaken by Mark Pascoe and a whole team of volunteers across the town. There's a whole huge number of volunteers who've been organising talks to primary school about Swift mapping and nest boxes, and there's been really great questions and enthusiasm. Within the town, we have built a town walking trail based on known Swift nest sites, and these are being celebrated by putting up a bespoke blue plaque, which is fantastic, and that gives an opportunity to enjoy in the future walking festival type events around Swifts and around biodiversity. So alongside this, there's been a poster campaign and local publicity and talks about mapping nest sites, and there have been new nest boxes put up in particular locations to encourage further nesting. There are also bespoke Swift nest boxes which are being built to the RSPB designs, which have been commissioned from our local men's shed. So it has been a truly community effort. In Wootton, there are around 10 known and established nest sites which have been confirmed, and blue plaques, which are separately sponsored, have been given permission to be put up by householders. And I think those householders are really delighted and proud to be living in a property which is a home to Swifts. So there are many more to go up for next summer, but they can take a season or two to be discovered and used by the Swifts. And one building extension consciously included a Swift brick for the first time. So I'm really pleased to celebrate the work that is ongoing and to recognise the scale of the challenge that we have right across the district and across the country. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Turner.
Thank you. Yes, so just a note of reassurance in that the amendment was developed in close consultation with development management to make sure it reflected our current practice. And also, you know, I thank Lindsay and the Conservative group. It was a good opportunity to check that we're doing all we can do on this, and we are. Such are the restrictions on us in terms of the planning system. I also just wanted to give another shout out for Jill from Stroud Swifts and express my gratitude. She has been spending some time over the past months working with our development management team to check that the species specific guidance in relation to Swifts is as good as it can be, and we really appreciate that expert guidance from one of our valued community groups. Thank you.
Councillor Baxendale.
Yeah, just on Nigel's point, to follow on from what the monitoring officer was saying, this is different as well in that it's from the original motion in that it talks about species-specific enhancements such as Swift box. It's not just about a blanket condition on Swift boxes on all developments, and on suitable properties where the evidence shows that the right kind of mitigation is being put in place. So it's not just a very simple blanket thing that may work in some places, may not work in others. While I'm on my feet, could I just ask that the last paragraph about members engaging with the Swift groups, that I think is actually one of the most important parts, that it really needs local ward members to engage with their Swift groups, to make sure that when applications come up in their wards, that they highlight to development management and to the biodiversity officer that Swifts are known to be in that area, because Swifts are birds of habit. They go back to the same places every year, and that's initially where you need to target the new nesting sites to replace the ones that are disappearing because of roof renovations and stuff like that, and holes being filled up. And if you're aware as a ward member that there are Swifts in your area, then that's going to be incredibly useful if you're drawing planning's attention, the biodiversity officer and development management, when an application comes up, that they should be asking applicants to come forward with mitigation specifically for Swifts. Once we know whether they're there, then we know there's a good reason to put it there. We've got the evidence, and we can target the mitigation for swifts.
Thank you. Councillor Jocker.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be quick because I know we've got to get through. I support the amended motion. It's fantastic. It's kind of deeply flawed, unfortunately, but because it only focuses on one cause and mentions other species, but only focuses on one cause. I mean, swift decline, like most other species decline, it relates to a number of different causes, including, as the motion mentions, insect decline, but doesn't mention the reason and the root cause of that decline, which of course is farming practices primarily. It doesn't mention at all climate change or ecological collapse or the shift and instability of climate zones. And really that exemplifies it. I think single issue approach to, kind of ecology and ecological kind of rescue and improvement is really, it's not really nearly enough. Only a kind of an emphasis on the kind of systemic nature of ecology and biodiversity and climate and the way in which they are collapsing together will really solve the issues that underlie this issue. Nonetheless, I will be supporting the amending motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tipper.
Thank you, Chair. On the basis that what I've heard, the basis of any planning application, a swift brick should be considered at every opportunity. I would like to keep it simple rather than create all the sort of sub-arguments that were completely unnecessary, and that's what was meant. That any planning application, a swift brick should be considered. And I was asking the question because you seem to go from questions to debate and backwards, and I didn't know where I was. And if I'd have disturbed the meeting by pointing that out to you. Sorry, I did that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tipper. Thank you very much. I haven't got anyone indicating they wish to contribute further in the debate. So we'll move to Councillor Jones to second and then Councillor Green to sum up.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Councillor Turner, for your words. Flawed wording or not, we put the motion forward and I hope something good is going to be achieved from that. Councillor Jockerell mentions the farming practice and declining insects and things like that. I understand that there are many reasons for declines in species of all sorts, but this is just one part of the jigsaw that needs to be dealt with by other means. I've had a lifelong interest in natural history of all sorts. I was brought up on a housing estate in the middle of a city, and those houses back in the 1960s and that, even though they were relatively new at the time, they still had lots of nooks and crannies where all sorts of species could nest. And I can remember watching house sparrows and starlings and house martins. We never had swifts nest around our house on this estate house. Nowadays, if you go to an estate, they are so well sealed for very good reason. We want nice, warm, efficient houses, but we share this planet with other species and we tend to dominate it. Anything we can do to try and even that balance is good as far as I'm concerned. So I recommend this to you and I hope you'll support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Green, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say I am by no means an expert in birds, in swifts, in things like that, but I'm trying my best to learn more. And that was my intention with this motion, because I think there's an awful lot of people out there that don't understand these things and almost try to ignore it. I wanted to try to achieve something through learning about it as well. Obviously, I have learnt a few things that perhaps I should have maybe done slightly more research on, but I am quite glad that we have got to a motion that seems agreeable with everyone. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So we're going to move now to the vote, and this will be electronically. So your buttons will be alight now to press for voting. Very much. That's carried unanimously. Thank you, everybody, for the debate. Right, we're going to move on now to the second motion, item 7B on the agenda. And this is the motion on the Stroud local plan, which is proposed by Councillor Hayden Jones and seconded by Councillor Chris Evans. I'm going to invite Councillor Jones to present the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I don't bring motions to council very often, and I've been involved in two tonight, so I apologise for that. And I'm not really used to the process of it. It took a bit of a surprising turn on the way to getting to the point we are now, but in the interest of this council and hopefully cross-party unity, I'm not going to dwell on that. I'm going to move straight on to the motion itself. What prompted my interest in bringing this forward, obviously, was the correspondence we've been having recently with the inspectors. And it struck me that the last time we voted on this or debated it in this chamber was over 2.5 years ago. And over 2.5 years ago, almost half of this council sitting here today, or not here, as it might be, were not on council. So in a real sense, for many of you, it's not your plan. You weren't involved in voting at that critical stage on it. So I thought it was time probably for a debate in chamber now. We had, after the inspectors wrote to us on the 2nd of August, I think it was, 4th of August, whatever, we had an all-member briefing on the 29th, I think it was, and there was an implication then that it was almost a unanimous vote to move forward to inspection at that vote back in April 21. That wasn't the case. None of the largest group, our group on council, supported it, but nevertheless there was recognition at that time that it needed, in order to gain wider support, community support, a cross-party position would be the way to go. And prior to the vote and prior to what is now the Strategic Planning Advisory Board, we had a thing called the Planning Review Panel, brilliantly chaired by Councillor Studart Kennedy there. And we worked for many years to try and come to a common position. We weren't quite able to do it in the end. But the thing that characterised most of the meetings was how much we had in common and how much in that local plan we actually supported. There were only a few areas that caused the issues, and some of those are coming back to haunt us slightly now. A couple of points, and Councillor Layfield mentioned earlier flawed wording, and I think probably I have some flawed wording in this, in that I wanted to be clear that I wish to take the inspector's advice and withdraw the plan at this stage so that we can have a look again and address those issues. And I'll come on to that. If you look at the inspector's original communication with us, they say 4 times in their fundamental concerns. They give a very wide hint, I think. I think the leader mentioned it earlier on, that until we have a clear steer from the inspectors, I think they've given us a very clear steer. So officers sent out a briefing for you all on each of the points in my motion. Slightly unusual to have that, but as it was sent out, I'm going to go through it point by point as briefly as possible, because some of them, there's a common theme in that. So the first one, I'm not sure if you've got the modified... Yes, there we go. So that top one there, all party leaders or their nominees should be included and advised concurrently in the decision-making process to resolve future direction of the local plan. The officer advice that came out effectively said there's no decision to make at the moment. And in terms of the local plan, I understand that. Once it's out to examination, it becomes locked. The decision I would say that there is to make is whether to take the inspector's advice and consider withdrawing it properly. And I'm not sure that we have done that. Moving on to the second point, it says any modification of the plan should be subject to full public consultation, the results published, described and reflected where appropriate in the plan. Again, I was rather thinking about if the plan was withdrawn. But the key thing I would say there, and I know that I am not the only one in this chamber, on my side or elsewhere, because I've spoken with other people, that the people that we represent don't always feel that consultations from this council on the local plan or development management are taken seriously. There's been a huge amount of feedback on the local plan in the 6 major consultation exercises. I'm not really, I know that a lot of people don't think that the consultation exercises are anything more than a tick box, and I don't know what changes there have been as a result of them. So that's the key thing there. The next bullet point I've got is a change of fundamental strategy to address identified challenges, including site selection, should be explored with key stakeholders. Again, the officers are saying there's no decision to make at the moment, but I'll come back to that in debate. Then resolution to areas of highlighted concern raised by inspectors should be subject to proper independent analysis, discrete from site promoter evidence. And the officers were slightly confused about what I meant by that. And so I think probably the best thing to do is to give a couple of examples. And they come from my ward because that's the area that I'm most familiar with. Many of you will know what agricultural land classification is. Some of you may not, but I'll just go through it very quickly. Agricultural land is classified for its productive capacity and the range of crops it can grow. There are 6 gradings, grade 1, 2 and 3A. They're called best and most versatile. Grade 3B, 4 and 5. The NPPF guides development towards the less productive land for a very good reason. Now, before we came to the vote back in 2021, all of our groups submitted our comments on it, and the Green Group, for instance, rightly in my view, said that PS37 Wislow shouldn't be developed because Natural England, in their high-level view of it, had identified that as the single biggest known area of agricultural land classification grade 2, so very much best and most versatile. Before we took the vote, the promoters got consultants in, did their test. They have to do a core sample on every hectare, 1,200 millimetres deep. They have to dig pits and do a few other tests. And lo and behold, they came out and said, no, the whole site is grade 3B. So that's okay then, okay for development. We took the vote. That may or may not have influenced the Green Group, I don't know. But as I say, prior to that, they were against it. A lot of people were very unhappy that this 3B grading had come out, and yet whereas Natural England thought it should be grade 2. The strategic planners were asked several times to address this and test what had come back from the consultants, and they didn't take us up on that. Eventually, some local people paid for their own consultant to use the evidence produced by the promoter's consultant, applied the proper maths, and it comes out, and lo and behold, it's grade 2. So we'll be charitable and say they must have made a mistake. They have since tested it again, had some more creditable consultants in, and confirmed the whole site is grade 2. So that's what I mean by testing independently some of the information that we receive from promoters. I could also say about Sharpness, for instance. You'll be aware, and the inspectors have raised the issue of the railway there. The promoters, the key man is a very clever chap and he's very persuasive, have put forward all sorts of very clever ways that they are absolutely convinced that that railway will be brought back into service and be able to be used to make that site in Sharpness sustainable, because it's a long way out. That was going to be the sustainable link for public transport. Eventually, I assume in their frustration, Gloucester County Council commissioned their own experts to review all that evidence that had come through. I urge you to read it. It's only 17 pages, and it absolutely eviscerates the proposals put forward by the promoters for Sharpness. Effectively, they say it simply will not happen. There are other issues as well. Viability is an issue at Wislow. At the very last minute in the examination...
Do you want to start to, because you technically should only have 5 minutes, and I'm conscious there are many examples that do you want to start to sort of...
I'll move on from that then.
Thank you.
5-year land supply, I'll come on to that in debate. And then every effort should be made to work with all partners involved, including National Highways and the County Council. I have seen various meetings have started to take place, but can I just give you an example to give you some context of how long it takes to get major infrastructure built? Junction 10 on the M5 was recognised as being something that would need addressing if Cheltenham, Tewkesbury and Gloucester County Councils wanted to develop in northwest Cheltenham. They started talking about this in the noughties, 2008-9. By 2013, they had formed a group that would look at proposals on how they could take it forward. It took them until 2020 to actually identify funding to be able to build that, £249 million from Homes England. It's only this month they're going to be going for a development consent order, which is like planning permission for a major infrastructure scheme. It's anticipated they may get that by 2026. We're looking at more than 16 years from start to finish. This is not a simple process, and there is no guarantee of the money, and we all know about how much money is available nowadays. I've gone on quite a long time, so I'll leave it at that for the time being. I'm happy to try and take questions, address questions if you've got any. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the seconder wish to speak now or reserve the right to speak later?
Could I speak later, please, Chair?
Okay. All right. In which case, I'll move to questions. Any questions for Councillor Jones?
Thank you. Just one for clarity. Taking the first statement, am I to understand that all party leaders are not advised concurrently at this time?
I believe the chief executive did her best to make sure that people were advised. It wasn't quite concurrent, and our leader didn't get advised at the same time. I think this is a mark in the sand, really, to try and encourage involvement of all parties in order to make sure that this desperately important piece of work goes through with the support of all parties.
I'll just ask the Chief Executive to clarify also. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think councillors are aware that it was rather unfortunate that we got the letter from the inspectors on the 4th of August. That, of course, is when most councillors are away. We don't have any meetings during that period. I was here. We did not get the opportunity to brief the Alliance group leaders, and of course it's appropriate to brief the administration of the council first. And I briefed all councillors the following day. So we're talking about a small time lag. It's not ideal. I do my best to make sure that group leaders are advised of things at very similar times, but of course it's important that the administration group leaders, the leader of the council, is briefed first on these matters, and I think even the opposition would probably understand that. We did our best and it was a day. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions before we move on? Yes, Councillor Ryder.
Councillor Jones, I'm interested what other options you see if we support this motion.
Thank you. I assume you mean for if the plan as specified is withdrawn, where we go from there. Well, I think there are lots of opportunities to do something differently. Clearly, the inspector has highlighted where major concerns are with the strategic road network and specific issues with two sites. There's a couple of things I would say. Again, from the planning review panel and conversations I've had with others, this wasn't just from my group, from councillors across the chamber in many ways, they were keener to have much more widespread dispersal than we've got at the moment. I know it's actually part of the Green Party's policies to have a wider dispersal where possible. It helps local and regional developers rather than the national developers. And it also, where you're looking to put 2,000 houses somewhere, often putting 200 houses next to someone is less controversial. Planners will tell you that there's issues with infrastructure and facilities like schools and what have you that come with it, but every house that's built has to make a contribution for the community infrastructure levy. So I think there are many options. There are emission sites all over the district that weren't included in this plan, some very large, some much smaller. I think looking at those and identifying the infrastructure that exists where there is capacity and considering emission sites that work with them is the way that we should be going, rather than continually trying to challenge with these, what South Gloucestershire Council call big ticket items. You've got to remember, I mentioned junction 10 of the M5, that's £335 million to do that. Junction 12, Gloucester County Council estimate £350 to £400 million. These are not small projects.
Thank you. And I think we had a Councillor Watson, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Forgive me for coming in late into this whole issue, in that I've only been a councillor for 2.5 years. I'm now not clear if I support this motion. Am I supporting withdrawal of the plan? Because that seems to be what you're intimating.
Well, again, coming back to Councillor Layfield's comments about flawed language, it doesn't actually say that in the plan. So, no, that isn't what you're voting for. I believe that's what we should do. I think the inspectors have given an incredibly strong hint about what the direction that we should go, and they've done it several times. That's what I think we should happen. But the motion before you now does not say that. It effectively says we need everybody together and to have a proper think about it, I would say, to try and encourage the administration, because you're the ones that run this council, to take a different direction and to encourage the officers to go with you, and we would support you in that endeavour.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, I can't see any questions. Okay. I believe we do have an amendment. Yes, so Councillor Turner, you're proposing an amendment?
Yes,
Just
is
speak
that
to that,
up on
yes.
the screen? Yeah. Check it's the right one. Yes, so thank you for bringing this. For me, the officer's briefing set out really quite clearly the parameters that we're operating in here. We've got the planning regulations, we've got the PINS procedures, and then we've got, the inspector's views and requirements of us. There aren't, as you intimated, there aren't any decisions to be made by council currently. If the inspectors did ask for the withdrawal of the plan, all councillors would then be involved in the decision making. And every effort is already being made to work with all the partners that are named up there. As a county councillor, I couldn't be more aware of the timeframes involved in major infrastructure such as road junction improvements. But that has to be anticipated by the inspectors in a district that includes a major motorway. So it shouldn't be sufficient to derail our plan. The position we're in now is that we have given all the information that has been asked of us at this stage, other than the minor additional pieces that have been asked of us today, and we simply have to wait for the inspectors' responses and continue our work in the background, working with partners. So I hope that with this amendment, we're reflecting what we can achieve within the parameters that I mentioned, what we are seeking to do with our partners, and that we continue in our efforts to show the inspectors that we have a sound plan, and we hope that we can move to adoption. Thanks.
Thank you. And you have a seconder, Councillor Braun. Do you wish to speak now or no? Okay. All right. So we're going to move on now to see if the proposer and seconder would accept the amendment or not.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at it very briefly, because I haven't had sight of this before, I think it changes it completely. The first bullet point, for instance, all leaders should support appropriate actions by the council to address the inspector's concerns and to achieve a sane local plan for our communities. I mean, I think effectively that says that we should just carry on doing what we're doing, and I made it very clear I don't think we should do that. I think we need to take a different path. So with that in mind, whilst some of the rest of it, the last one is relatively innocuous, I don't think we'd be prepared to accept that amendment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. In which case, we're going to move now to debate on the amendment. So any members who wish to debate on whether we should accept this amendment and change the motion, please indicate that you wish to speak now. Okay, no one wishes. Yes, Councillor Houston. Yeah, and then Councillor Miles.
Thank you, Chair. I'll kick us off because I'm sure there are others that do want to speak on this. It's a shame that the original motion wasn't to withdraw the local plan. The local plan is a mess. The planners and inspectors have told us that, and we could have had a debate today to withdraw it and go back with a redone proper local plan addressing the issues. The motion doesn't ask for that. When I think that the councillor has submitted it, that is his intention. Unfortunately, the motion that he's written doesn't ask for that, and then it leaves you open to an amendment that effectively just says let's carry on as we are. So I can't vote for the amendment, and actually I might have struggled to vote for the original motion when the original motion should have been to withdraw the local plan. The local plan is a mess, and we should have withdrawn it when we were told and started afresh, because if you look at the comments, and they are repetitive, and Hayden made the point, the planning inspector is clear in their comments that the local plan is not fit for purpose. And if his original motion would have been to withdraw the local plan, I would have voted for that. This, particularly after the amendment, which basically just said let's carry on, I simply can't vote for that at all.
Thank you. Councillor Miles.
Thank you. I'm going to vote with this amendment because I feel we need to work with the officers and the inspector and all the other bodies, see if they can find a way through. And only then, if the plan is withdrawn, to think again. But for the moment, we have to see the process through. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Alden.
Thank you, Chair. I'm also going to support this amendment, and I'd like to draw attention to the first bullet point, which says to achieve a sound local plan for our communities. And I think that's really important to remember, that perhaps instead of trying to use it as some sort of political football, we actually all put our heads together and work together and get this through. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pearson.
A couple of times tonight I've been hearing that apparently by the 10th of November, the inspectors want to have further questions answered. It actually doesn't say that in the letter. It says that by the 10th of November, it wants a scheme sponsor named for the Junction 14 improvements. It wants comments from National Highways, Gloucestershire County Council and South Gloucestershire Council from them on our technical note of the 16th of October. All responses to be received by Friday the 10th of November. That's 15 days' time. Let's have some reality. Is a sponsor for the Junction 14 redevelopment of £300 million going to be named and found by the 10th of November? I do not think so. What indicates this is they actually don't seem to have had any comments about what we submitted on the 16th of October by the three interested parties I'm also told we've been working closely with. So I'm just somewhat unsure now what I should be supporting or not, but certainly not supporting this. I would support the original motion.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else who wishes to debate, so oh, sorry, Councillor Bryan.
Chair, I don't believe the local plan should be withdrawn anyway. I think that to say it's a shambles is wrong. It's not wrong at all. We've been picked up on a couple of points of the local plan, and that is where the sticking point is. That doesn't address that issue at all. I can't support any motion tonight because I think a motion tonight is premature, because we're not in a position to make those types of decisions yet until we move further through. So I'll be not voting. I'll be voting against any amendment on the local plan tonight, because we need to go through the process. The process is important. If we don't have a local plan, this district is vulnerable to developers putting applications in on land that we cannot control. A local plan is essential. I've been around this council 28 years. I know I keep reminding you all, but the reality is I've gone through, I think it's 2 or maybe 3 local plans, and not one of them have ever gone through smoothly. But they've gone through to protect the land that we are here as custodians to protect. That's what a local plan does. And if we start messing around at this stage, we're going to make ourselves vulnerable. The inspector has not told us our local plan is rubbish. He has not told us to withdraw it. If it was, he would have said that. What he said is, my understanding is, go away and look at these areas of concern and come back with a plan in layman's terms. And that's what we should let this council do, that piece of work. And then maybe in time, we may have to come back if we got some further questions. But not let's muddy the waters, colleagues. Tonight, we shouldn't be voting on an amendment at all about the local plan. The local plan is going through a process, and let's all get behind it and support it. A lot of hard work has been done on this local plan for the right reasons, to make sure our land is protected for the future, and we've got homes for people to live. We spent 40 minutes discussing Swifts, 40 minutes, and we all know, and not one person had an objection to that. We all agreed we got to protect not just our people, but we got to protect our wildlife. And that's all part of a local plan. If we haven't got a local plan in place, we've got nothing. So please, don't let's muddy the waters and make political nonsense out of this. I will not be supporting any amendment on the local plan tonight. I'll be voting against it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bryan. I can't see anyone else indicating. Apologies, Councillor Tippett. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry I'm late. I agree with a lot that Councillor Bryan has said. I represent CAM, and I'll tell you something right now. We are absolutely fed up with developers who see CAM as a soft touch. It's a flat piece of ground, and Frank know pretty well compared with everywhere else in the district. And that's why we're being, for want of a better word, being picked on by the development of the local plan and the administration and the officers. A developer comes along, put an application in, and it's considered not even refused. And one of the biggest that affects us is the observation by the inspectors with regard to all the motorway junctions. Not just one of them, 13, but 14 and 11. They affect us all. All those affect us in every shape or form, because we are like a dormitory town in many respects. And thank God we got the Camandersley railway station, which is well used by people getting to Bristol. But frankly, from our point of view, I believe we've requested that no further applications should be considered until all this has been sorted out. Simply because you're giving planning permissions that really are going against observations by the inspectors, and that is the motorway junctions. And we've heard quite clearly that how much money is involved and how long it takes, to get them done. And then, frankly, if we go on as we are now, we've already built more than our quota towards what should be done in the district. And a bit like, say, Stonehouse, they've also done the same. So basically, what we're looking for is further thoughts as to development elsewhere. We're fed up with it, and we don't want any more of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tipper. I'll just check. No one else. Oh, yes, sorry, Councillor Baxendale and Councillor Turner.
Yeah, just following on from what Councillor Brown was saying, just so there's no confusion in anybody's minds, this motion as amended doesn't in any way amend our local plan. We can't do that while it's in public examination. This is a steady as we go proposal, that we carry on doing what we've been doing, which is to try to get the local plan through. And this doesn't introduce any changes, so I don't think should be any problem with anybody voting for it, because it does not change the local plan or what we want the local plan to come out looking like.
I'm come to you at the end because you're a proposer, so Councillor Green.
Thank you. I will not be voting for this amendment, because I think it's actually really important, as Councillor Jones said, with the amount of councillors that come into this at a late stage, there is a chance for you to actually have a say. I know that we cannot change what we've already put in, but inspectors have identified not just some small changes, these are fundamental concerns that they have identified. These are not just things that are, as has already been said, that are going to be changed overnight. My worry is that if we keep going on and on and on, this is taxpayers' money that we are spending as well, if this keeps dragging on. We also need to think about the people that this actually affects. The people in Cam, the people in Dursley, because that will have an effect. There has been so many things wrong with this plan, and I cannot support for us to just keep going along as we are. We need to be able to challenge, and that's what we're doing. So I will not be voting for this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Yes, just you did clarify at the end. So just we're debating whether we include the amendment or not, and we will then, whether it passes or fails, come back to debate the motion in its final form. So just to be sure that we're clear on that. That's why I was saying, Councillor Turner, because you're the proposer of the amendment, I'll come to you at the end, if that's okay, of this debate. Councillor Evans, please.
Thank you, Chair. I will not be able to support this amendment. I think it completely changes the motion. It changes the point of it. To go and look at it through the first point there, it talks about our communities. Councillor Tipper has already said what the community I represent thinks of this local plan. I can give you an example about Cam. There is a site in the local plan at Cam, PS24, which already has applications against it. Those applications were made in 2021. They're still on hold because National Highways is not happy National Highways thinks they will have an excessive impact on junction 14 of the M5. They said that as recently as earlier this month, and that is confirmed in the documents which are published today in relation to the local plan, where National Highways have again said they will not permit development which impacts junction 14, and CAM will do that. National Highways have said that. And that goes against what Stroud District Council say. In the letter that Stroud District Council sent to the planning inspectors on the 29th of August, it is implied that CAM will not have a significant impact on junction 14, while National Highways do not agree with that. So therefore, how is this plan going to proceed when it is so flawed? Going on to the other thing which is perhaps most important about this to me, it's the public consultation. As Councillor Jones said, public consultation has previously been poor. It's been poorly publicised and the results have largely been ignored. I have had emails from the people in CAM and they have literally said, I quote, "Why won't SDC listen?" Well, in this amendment, SDC is declaring that it is determined not to listen. So I will not be voting for it because I want to deliver a plan which works for the people. We don't just want housing estates, we want communities. So I will not vote for this amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not quite sure of the process, so if Councillor Turner is going to be debating it, I thought I'd better come in now because I can see the way it's going. So a couple of things. There is no perfect plan. There is no perfect site. I understand that. It's all about compromise and trying to weigh up strengths and weaknesses and harm versus benefits. So I do understand that. Couple of things. We've talked about the 5-year land supply, and you'll all be aware of how important that is. When we had our all-member briefing, I don't think I mentioned this earlier, there was a question asked about it, and it was suggested it was somewhere in the region of 6.5 years. The question got asked again. I asked strategic planners, and they thought it was about 6.47 years. Our deputy leader did press on this, and it turns out it's 5.38 years. I'm happy to take a change to that if that's altered, but 5.38 years. So I've got a little bit of bad news. I think we are likely to be experiencing some speculative development, whatever happens with this plan, because there is going to be a delay. We've asked for a 6-month delay. If that's granted, the 5-year land supply will gradually weaken unless it's topped up by applications that come for DCC, for instance, that get passed. But it's likely that we will be facing speculative applications of one sort or another. So I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I think that will be the case. My Councillor Evans mentioned CAM. I would have to say, again, about community, this is not a political football. We're trying to do what we can to represent the community properly. CAM went through the not inconsiderable job of drawing up a neighbourhood development plan. That has to be done in lockstep with Stroud District Council. So they did that. They got it approved by Stroud District Council. It went to the vote and it's approved. One of the sites there, I think it's something PS24 has got, in that NDP, is about 700 houses in there. That's now gone up somehow to 900 or more houses. I'm not sure of the exact position. I don't think that's supporting our communities. Neighbourhood development plans are generally recognised, despite the fact it's brought in by my lot, generally recognised as a good thing. For the first time ever, it gives statutory power to local communities. So I don't think we should be ignoring that sort of thing. I'll just finish with 2 points. At the beginning of the examination in public, everybody was able to make a statement. The leader came on, make a statement. Other people did as well. One of the statements which I thought was quite surprising, bearing in mind we're supposed to be working very closely with important partners like Gloucester County Council. So this is not a community, it's not me or a politician of any sort making this statement. The head of highways for Gloucester County Council said, the whole strategy is wrong. You should have identified infrastructure with capacity and built your plan from there. I think that really is a very telling comment. Finally, if I could just read out one of the paragraphs that the inspectors have sent. I think this was in the earlier in October letter to us. So I'll read out one of these paragraphs, and it was mentioned by someone earlier on. I can't remember who, but I'll just read this because it's important. A further point to consider is that even if we were to agree to a 6-month pause in the examination, there can be no guarantee that the work undertaken will fully address the concerns that we outlined in our letter dated 4th of August. It goes on to say, don't think that just if you do this, all's going to be well. We may make the same decision again. We were originally told about the motorway junctions in March. We're now in October. If we get a 6-month delay, we're going to be well into next year. That's very expensive for a start, and we may end up with the same outcome. I think we're gambling with our community's future and their money, and we should think very carefully about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Braun, you're seconding the amendments. I'd invite you to speak, and then invite Councillor Turner to sum up, if you wish to speak, that is, on the amendment. We've done the debate on the amendment, so we're finishing the debate on the amendment. No, you don't want to speak. Okay, Councillor Turner, do you want to sum up on around the amendment? Thank you.
I was actually I wondered first whether I could just address Councillor Pearson's comment about the scheme sponsor needing to be identified by the 10th of November. That isn't a funder for the scheme. That wouldn't be realistic by the 10th of November. I don't know whether, with the Chair's permission, I might ask the Chief Executive to say a few words on exactly what that does mean.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Just to clarify, a scheme sponsor is usually the Highway Authority or National Highways, and Gloucestershire County Council have agreed to be the sponsor for improvements to Junction 12. In the case of Junction 14, we would be looking to South Gloucestershire Council or WECA as transport authorities for the area. So that is just simply a matter that we need to discuss with them. And as I believe the leader said in her opening announcements, we have a meeting with South Gloucestershire Council on Monday.
Thank you for that clarification. It's a lot of detail, I know, so it's important to get these things right. Right, so we're now, just to be clear, we're going to vote on whether we are accepting the amendment as you can see it on the screen there. And so, I think, do we? No. Yes, everyone has spoken, so yeah, we'll move to that. So we're going to do an electronic vote on whether we accept the amendment or not. So the amendment has been carried, in which case we are now, the substantive motion is that one, which you've got there on the screen. So we are now going to move, are we moving right back to the beginning now, I think? So, yeah, we're now going to go to debate on the motion as it stands on your screen. So anyone who wishes to speak on that motion, yes, Councillor Ross.
I do not wish to speak on the amendment, Chair. What I do wish to speak on is, do we have a time limit on people speaking? I fear we're in election season already. I can feel grandstanding in this chamber tonight, and I feel that people should limit themselves to the time that they should. We used to have a clock in this chamber that used to click down like a countdown clock, didn't it? Does anybody remember it? Get a few nods. So I would like to thank you very much, Claire.
Yes, we have been keeping on the time, but I'm conscious that we've got 5 minutes if we're proposing a motion, but 3 minutes for members' contributions, and it's a very well made point. It's hugely detailed, isn't it, the local plan, and we could spend the whole evening discussing it in all its details. So do try to keep within the remit of what we've got now. So we're debating around this motion, and anyone else, I think I had Councillor Ryder next, and anyone else who wishes to speak, just indicate, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that from my perspective, it's pointless for us to take this motion forward. So I cannot support this motion. I think the themes that Councillor Jones has talked about in bringing forward the original motion are themes that I can really concur with, and that is a lack of a voice in this process and a need to step back and actually reflect. I have been very impressed with how officers have come to make arrangements with other stakeholders in such a short time. But I'm very concerned that we are on the wrong path, and I don't feel like I have a voice in this, so I can't support this motion, but I also don't feel like I've got a voice in bringing forward my residents, my constituents' concerns in any other forum, because I'm in the north of the district. Junction 12 is critical to over 5,000 homes that are currently on the radar. And my fear is that these homes will happen anyway without the infrastructure, because that work hasn't been done to look at the key infrastructure. So I can't support this motion.
Oh, no, I'll do it. It's fine. Sorry, I think I see this. Oh, you're right over there. Should we just clarify where we are? Because it is quite a long evening. I think we'll take we've got the rules about after an hour and a half, we normally have a break. So after we've got through this item, we will have a short break. So just to clarify, we had a motion. The administration proposed an amendment, and that amendment was voted for. And so the motion you've got now is the one with the agreed amendment. And so now we're in debate on this motion. The proposer and seconder, which is Councillor Jones and Evans, remain the same, but now we're debating. Don't they remain the same? Oh, we moved completely to, apologies. We've moved to the, because it's that, they didn't accept it, right. Okay, that's my mistake, okay.
Seconder is no Catherine and Chloe.
Okay, apologies, I misspoke there. But just to be clear, we're debating now the motion which is on the screen, which is the amended motion. So if anyone wishes to speak for or against that motion, yeah, Councillor Pearson.
Neither really. I'm just trying to get rid of my confusion. We've had a motion. The motion has been amended. It's been voted upon. Surely that is the motion. That is it.
No, I mean, we have to always, if a motion comes before the council and there's an amendment proposed, if it's a friendly amendment that's accepted, then there's no vote. But because it wasn't accepted, we had to have a vote, and the vote was passed to accept the amendment. And now we're back to where we're thinking.
There might be other amendments.
Yes, and yeah. So I think it's not hopefully as complicated as all that. We're debating this amendment, this motion rather, which is now on the screen. So if anyone wishes to speak for or against, Councillor Baxendale.
Sorry, just a question. Do we not now need a new proposer and seconder for the motion, or does it, because since it hasn't been, okay, could I have clarification on that, because I'm a bit confused.
Okay, so just to clarify the process again, we had an amendment, we had a motion which had a mover and a seconder. There was an amendment suggested to that motion which wasn't accepted. That amendment had a mover and a seconder. That went to the vote after a debate, and that was passed. So that now becomes what we call the substantive motion, and the mover and the seconder of the amendment now own the motion because it went through on a vote.
That was the point I was trying to clarify.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure whether that was
And the
case
reason
or
that
not.
we now have to proceed with this being a substantive motion is because actually, if somebody wanted to, they could now move an amendment to this, because you can have multiple amendments. We can only deal with one at a time. Does that make sense? So we're now voting the motion as amended as the substantive motion.
Okay. I had Councillor Schumacher and then I think Councillor Bryan after that.
No.
I feel basically there is I believe there is no sufficient infrastructure anywhere in the Stroud district for a large amount of housing. So whatever we do is a make, do, amend. And we have to do that in a way that does justice to the whole community. I feel therefore that we have to work with the inspectors and see how we get through this process. And then whatever the outcome is, we have to make the best of it together. And that this motion now, I feel, backs that up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bryan.
Mine was chair, just put it to the vote.
Is it moving that we put it to the vote?
Are you moving that?
Yeah,
okay.
definitely.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Have a seconder for that? Councillor Ross.
Can we do a show of hands and everybody in favour? We go straight to the vote.
Show of hands that we move to the vote. Those in favour? I think that's probably enough. Okay.
Enough?
You want to just check? Just keep your hands.
You need to put your hands up if you want to support that.
Keep your hands up
and
for a
then
moment.
That we go straight to the vote. That's carried.
Thank you. Right. So we'll
go to Catherine as the seconder to sum up, and then to Chloe to sum up, and then straight to the vote.
Okay. Catherine, you're going to sum up, and then, sorry, you're going to second speak, then Chloe will sum up.
Thank you. I welcome the debate this evening and thank the proposers of the original motion for bringing a motion. I do recognise it has been a while since the council has had an opportunity to debate the local plan. Just to sum up some of the comments that have been made, you know, the local plan and the formation of the local plan is one of the most important responsibilities that we have as district councillors. As Councillor Evans was saying, it's all about creating communities, not just new housing estates. And this is something we really want to see this local plan deliver. There's a real risk that if we change direction at this point, that speculative development would come forward anyway. We'd have no control over the delivery of infrastructure and the valuable community benefits that do need to be delivered with the local plan. I think, as Councillor Jones has recognised, there is a real risk of speculative development. We know how long it takes to prepare a local plan. It takes years. We are in the process at the moment. We are also in discussion with the planning inspectors, and both the planning inspectors have had numerous comments as we proceeded with the plan. There is more in the plan that they welcome than that they have concerns about. And as you will have recognised from the recent letter that we sent, we are also engaging with them to understand whether they are applying the correct test in terms of the National Planning Policy Framework, in terms of infrastructure for housing delivery. So this is an ongoing discussion and a process. It really is important that we continue with this plan and that we secure a sound local plan so that we continue to have control over development and support our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Turner, do you want to sum up?
Thank you. Yes, I'll be brief. We've heard a lot about communities tonight. They are absolutely fundamental to what we're trying to achieve with this strategic planning process. The communities, I don't recognise the fact that, you know, public consultation has been insufficient. I've attended many of the sessions, the examination sessions. The communities have been there and they have been able to say their piece direct to the inspector. The inspector has heard that. But the issues that the inspector has raised largely do not relate to those issues. They relate to very specific, largely transport-based concerns that we are seeking to address in the ways that we have set out. I personally feel that we have taken extensive advice. I have full confidence in our officers, and I would really hope that everybody can get behind the approach that we're taking so that we can move forward with this towards the adoption of a SAM plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Turner. And we're going to move to the vote on the motion now.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The motion has passed. I think we'll take a short comfort break now. It's nearly 10 to 9, so until 9 o'clock, but please, councillors, do be back.
You said 9 o'clock.
Yeah, I did. Okay. Okay, thank you, everybody. We're going to move on to item 8A, which is the a recommendation from the Audit and Standards Committee, the annual report of the chair of the Audit and Standards Committee for 22-23. And I'm going to ask Councillor Nigel Studdard-Kennedy, who's the chair, to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and good evening, fellow councillors. I hope you've had a chance to read through the report. There's no point in me going through it line by line. However, after the earlier discussions this evening, it seems prescient that one should put the timetable in correct order. So the report you read actually covers the audit accounts and governance statement for 21-22 because they've been audited and passed. The accounts and annual governance for 22-23 are those currently subject to audit at the moment. Don't know whether they've been signed off yet. Can the section 151 tell me?
Accounts for 22-23 are being audited currently.
So they haven't been signed off yet. That's the point. All right. Okay. And anything we say about 23-24, you won't actually see in print until sometime around July next year. So that just gives you a context of the report that you've got before you. I draw your attention to page 34 of tonight's papers under the heading Conclusions. It will be seen that the oversight of the Council's governance, risk management and internal control framework, has continued. It also shows that the work programme is continually reviewed. The committee will continue to support the work of the internal and external audit, monitor actions arising from the annual governance statement and monitor the new risk management site, IdeaGen. Amongst other things, it is the duty of the committee to ensure high standards of governance and conduct. To this end, a subcommittee of Audit and Standards Committee, known as the Standards Panel, is responsible for hearing complaints about local councillors that have not been settled by negotiation. I am very pleased to report that such hearings are a rare occurrence. Nevertheless, I thank those who performed this duty, in particular the appointed independent persons, for their work. One other matter that I think is worth mentioning is that in the change of financial circumstances nationally, our investment policy is now starting to show more positive results, i.e. the days of 0.65% interest have gone. This will, of course, be reflected in the report for next year on the results for 23-24. So, having read the report, the committee recommends to Council the annual report of the committee for 22-23 be approved. I'm happy to take questions if there are any, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, Councillor Studdard-Kennedy? I don't see any, and obviously it has already been to the committee. So, in which case I'll read out the decision, which is Council resolves to approve the annual report 22-23 as recommended by the Audit and Standards Committee. So, I guess Councillor Studdard-Kennedy, you're proposing it. Do we have a seconder? Yes, Councillor Pearson. Councillor Pearson, do you speak now or reserve the right? No, okay. And then we'll move into debate. So anyone wishes to speak on this? Yes, Councillor Brown.
Thank you. I'd just very briefly like to thank the chair of the Audit and Standards Committee and all of the committee for the work that they've done over the past year, for the officers as well, recognising that there is quite a lot of backlog and delay around local government audit generally across the sector. So we're doing quite well in order to, by having our accounts sort of going through already for this year. So I'd just like to thank them all and welcome this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to speak? Yes, Councillor Jockle.
I'd just like to reiterate Councillor Bourne's comments. As a new member of the committee, I was very, very, very impressed by the competence and the shrewdness and the informed nature of debate and the collegiate approach to the committee as a whole. And having reviewed the report, I was really impressed by the work that had been done over the years. So it's kind of like somebody just with fresh eyes had come to the committee. I just want to commend the work of the committee as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to speak? No? Okay. In which case, Councillor Pearson, do you wish to speak as seconder?
I would just like to say that once again, a well-prepared report, and I thank Councillor Stanley Kennedy for his excellent chairing throughout the year. This year, in very difficult situations with his health for a while, and it was a really good job.
Thank you. Councillor Kennedy, would you wish to sum up? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I must say I'm extremely grateful for such kind remarks coming across the chamber. It's much appreciated, and it does justify the approach of apolitical as far as the audit committee is concerned. Other than that, I wish to recommend the report to the council and like them to endorse it in full, please. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. In which case, we'll move to the vote. So, electronic voting. I think that's unanimous. Yep, very good. Okay, thank you very much. Right, we're going to move on now to a recommendation from Strategy and Resources Committee, which is 9A, the Electric Vehicle Charge Point Rollout Project, STC car parks, and I'm going to invite, I think, Catherine, are you going to introduce Chloe to speak on this? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to invite the Chair of the Environment Committee to present this report.
Thank you very much. Sorry that you've heard rather a lot from me tonight. So this project, I'm very pleased to see this come forward. It's been in the works for a while. I'm grateful to our officers, Michael Towson and Sinead Chambers, for all the work that goes behind this. It's a really big project. So back in March, a strategy for the rollout of EV charge points came to the Environment Committee, setting out the intended locations, the procurement model, the operational model, and the availability of grant funding. Then that progressed to the further report setting out the detail of what we plan to implement, which has now come to both the Environment Committee in September and then to Strategy and Resources on the 5th of October. And received support in both cases. So the I'm sure there'll be members noting that this perhaps has taken longer than we might have liked. It has taken some time to get the non-disclosure agreement in place with the provider Connected Curb, who are the provider that the County Council are using for their much larger rollout. It made a lot of sense to use the same provider for both of us, but there were some legal technicalities that had to be ironed out in order to do that. But we are now benefiting from the fact that right across the county, we will all be using the same technology. Site surveys have been undertaken. There's been a great deal of work with the distribution network operator to make sure that grid connection is suitable and possible in the places that have been identified. Of the sites that were provisionally identified, only one has actually been ruled out on a grid basis, and that was the Parliament Street car park in Stroud. Fortunately, we have many car parks in Stroud, and London Road is particularly well served for grid. So we've therefore upped the capacity there to compensate, and I think that will work well for the Stroud community. In terms of the plan provision, you'll see at table 1 at 4.6 that we have 8 different sites identified where we're going to be installing charge points. In most cases, they are 7 kilowatt chargers, so that's sort of overnight chargers that local residents will be looking to use. In Stroud, reflecting the fact that Stroud is our largest settlement and receives more visitor traffic, we have an additional to 22 kilowatt faster chargers. In due course, I'm sure we'll want faster chargers in some of our other spaces as well. This is an initial rollout, and I'm sure there will be more in due course. You'll also see that we're putting in passive supply. That basically is passive nodes that can be activated in the future, and it future-proofs the site so that we don't have too much additional infrastructure cost when we go back to put in more provision to reflect additional need in due course. Another quick thing to mention in Wootton, so we have the site identified for 2 charge point bays. There is a possibility of being able to install more, and the Town Council have invited us to partner with them on that in relation to the Chipping car park. And we have sought delegation to Mike Towson to work on that piece of work, and hopefully we can secure that outcome for the residents of Wootton Under Edge. Funding wise, we receive 50% funding from government for the scheme. So the report asks for £196,000 of capital, but actually 50% of that, assuming our application goes through, and we have every reason to think it will be grant funded, and then SDC will directly finance the remaining £98,000. That figure includes a 10% contingency, and that reflects a real potential for grid fluctuations in grid connection costs. Until you get down into the ground, you don't really know how much it's going to cost down to the last pound. But it also reflects that additional potential in Wootton Under Edge, which will cost a little bit more. And then in addition to the capital, we've also got an annual revenue spend of around £9,000, which, subject to approval, will be included in the budget setting process for 24-25 that we're just coming up to now. We would hope that that will be offset on an ongoing basis by revenue from users of these charges, but that will depend on uptake, and so we'll reflect that as we come to it. So we're looking for your approval today to go ahead with these works. Assuming we do get approval, officers will raise an order as per the cluster agreement, which is set out in the contract. And finally, the expectation is that chargers will start to be installed before the end of the calendar year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Any questions on that? Yes, Councillor Green and then Councillor Morris.
Thank you for that. Can I just ask, with the passive supply, obviously you said it's for future-proofing. Does that mean that the sites with passive supply, or with no passive supply, will not be expanded? And my second question is at 5.2 on page 38, when it says about the funding, we fully expect our project to be eligible in its entirety and have priced the project accordingly. Do we know when we will find out if we are successful with that funding?
Thank you for your questions. In terms of the passive supply, I think it's a space issue. So what it looks like in practice, passive supply is exactly the same sort of kit under the ground, but you just don't have the bit on top. So if there is a very obvious place to put the passive supply, that has been done. I don't know in detail. I wouldn't go as far as to say that if passive supply hasn't been put in, that means that we don't see expansion there, but it just means that the obvious contenders have been supplied with passive supply. I'd have to go back to Mike to ask for a bit more on that one. And likewise on 5.2, I don't have the timescales to hand, but I can certainly follow up with Mike when he's back from leave. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Miles.
I've got two things to ask, really. The first was it considered whether King's Cross could have one of these points? Because we do have an STC car park and it has got electric supply. So did you consider it? And the other thing is, when we move forward, will we be having so people can use their debit card rather than yet another app that I can't download? So do you think that can be considered as we move forward?
Thank you. On the first one, we took quite extensive consultation with parishes in terms of needs and in terms of there has to be a business case to get the grant funding. So you have to really demonstrate that you've got the appropriate number of properties that don't have the off-street parking that would be able to offer personal charges. So unfortunately, I can't tell you the exact answer, but if King's Cross, or as King's Cross is not included, that suggests to me that perhaps it didn't meet the business case criteria in terms of off-street parking, but I will find that out for you. In terms of the app, yes, that is a frustration with the connected curb scheme, that it does involve an app for the 7 kilowatt chargers. In terms of that is a frustration. These charges are being put in with the expectation that local residents will be using them, though. And I think because it's common to the whole of Gloucestershire, there is at least that reassurance that, you know, once you've got that app, you can charge anywhere in Gloucestershire on the council's various schemes. The 22 kilowatt chargers, my understanding is they will work on a tap and go basis, reflecting the fact that they are aimed more at visitors. But yes, I take your point. In an ideal world, they would all be tap and go.
You, Councillor Miles, can you turn your microphone off? Sorry, then, if that's okay. Councillor Robinson, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chloe. Could I just ask about the passive supply? And you may not know this technical, but will that mean that if you need any additions, you could at some stage put rapid chargers in with that passive supply, or will it only be, you know, the wiring or whatever is underground would only take 7 kilowatts or possibly 22, not really rapid? Could you?
My understanding is that that is a case-by-case basis, because the grid's availability in all of these 8 different cases is very different. So I don't think it is automatic. It's definitely the case that you can put a 7 kilowatt in. Whether or not you can install a 22 kilowatt on the passive supply node will depend on that particular car park setup. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. They're all a bit different, unfortunately. Sorry.
Could I just come back? Is it something that councillor could find out for me, whether, you know, at a later stage, rapid chargers can go in, you know, once the wiring's up in the car park? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Schumacher.
Yes. Further to the question about Keynes Cross, did I take account of the fact that Tricorn House will have very few car parking spaces? So that there may well be an additional need soon for electric car charging. And the second point illustrates that I haven't got an electric car myself. Does one have to pay car park charges in the car park while one is getting one's vehicle charged?
Thank you for those. So, yeah, Tricon House is a really good point, and it may well alter the business case. This is wave 1 of what we'd anticipate to be at least one more, if not multiple, phases. So I would definitely anticipate that all of the car parks that haven't already got provision or haven't got enough provision will be reconsidered, and the addition of Tricorn House will certainly alter the picture in Keynes Cross. In terms of parking charges, yes, you do have to pay. As you'd expect, I don't think it would be fair on other users of the car park if you didn't. However, we are anticipating with the 7 kilowatt chargers that the majority of people using those will be using them overnight when our car parks do not charge. So I don't think it will apply in practice in most cases.
Thanks. I'll just clarify, I think the only car park that we currently charge is the Stroud one. So I think the others, in the other towns, we don't charge anyway.
Point. Yeah. So it'll only be London Road. Yeah.
Thanks. That's probably a whole other debate that we're going to get into. Yeah. Okay. I think it was Nigel Studdard Kennedy next, and then Councillor Sutton, Hayden Sutton.
Thank you. Forgive my ignorance, but I seem to remember reading the papers that the rate of charge was about 10 miles per hour. Is that correct? Because if it is, it means that you only get 30 miles worth of charge out of 3 hours charging space, if you see what I mean. And we've got 2 charging spots. So is that right or wrong? Could you please enlighten me?
I can't tell you what the rate is offhand. Certainly with a 7 kilowatt charger overnight, so that's a fairly standard charger, and overnight you would certainly anticipate filling your battery. I think the battery on my electric car, I think, is 40 kilowatts. So at 7 kilowatts an hour, you would comfortably fill it overnight. But again, it sounds like we've got quite a few questions, so I will listen back to this with Mike, and we'll perhaps put a little paper together to send across to members, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. Thank you for that.
Can I just follow that up, please,
Yes,
Madam
yes.
Chair? Sorry, I'm very much obliged to you for that idea. I think it would be extremely useful because at the present moment, the maths would indicate you've got room for two who can charge overnight and everybody else can't do anything. That's the bit I'm trying to get clear in my mind. Thank you.
That is true. Yes, I mean these are not fast chargers; they are slow chargers. So that is what we are anticipating: is that if you have two chargers in operation, they will satisfy two residents overnight. Noting that an awful lot of people are able to have, particularly in our rural areas, off-street parking and therefore their own chargers, and that generally speaking, with an electric car, you don't charge every night. So my car, for example, I would charge once a week. So there are, there is more capacity than it might initially sound. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Councillor Hayden Sutton next.
Thank you, Chair. In fact, Councillor Schumacher has asked, and I've had the answers for both those questions. That was Tricorn House and extra parking in Keynes Cross from the development Tricorn House. And we've already had the answers. Thank you, Councillor Schumacher.
Councillor Pearson.
Yeah, it might sound a strange question, but how do we go about somewhere? I'll take Plainswick, for example, where I know there's lots of people that park in there because there is nowhere else to park. And they use our car park, particularly at nights, for the place to park their car. How do we as a council how would we get involved in disputes where the same four people over the road every night come in the car park at the right appropriate time, take all four spaces, stay there overnight and do it every night of the week and no one else gets a look in? How would you do anything? How could we do anything about that? Because I could see almost like neighbours' spats, exactly the same as people that park in the same place on the street outside somebody else's house, etc., etc. Whereas we all know you can park anywhere you like on the highway. No one has a right to any particular place. And it may not happen, but I could just see that being a bone of contention sometime. Do you know that guy down the road? He's always on there at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. No one ever gets a look in. His car's on there every night of the week.
I think if that individual is charging their car, then I'm afraid that's life. We can't monitor these charges. So if it's a first come first served basis, if they are charging their car every night, they're doing an awful lot of driving. But if they're I think we have a basis on which to act if somebody is parking in the bay and not charging. But I do think there will be tensions because the rate of growth in terms of the EV market is quicker than the provision of infrastructure because it's tricky to implement. The grid connections are really tough. There aren't that many places. We've seen through this process that the idea of, quite often in some of our smaller market towns, there's very limited parking. So the idea of taking some of those spaces out of operation for most people is really tricky. But we do have the county council's provision, which is going to be on street coming as well. So I'm hopeful that in tandem, we'll probably be behind for a bit, like everybody across the country, but we're doing our best to match demand, as is the government funding, and hopefully we won't have too many spats along the way.
Councillor Love, thank you.
Just a quick answer to the question. Generally, it's about 4 miles for every kilowatt. That's how far you can go. But as a resident of Plainswick, there's very significant demand for people who don't have off-street parking for more electric charging. What have we got in place to speed up that further introduction? Because, as you say, the transition is likely to be faster than we're currently catering for, both locally and nationally.
Sorry, I didn't realise you'd moved to a question, please. What was the last bit of your question?
I
mean, I think one of the reasons we went with Connected Curb and are partnering with the County Council on this is so that we are able to to increase our offer as quickly as possible, and to do that in a coordinated and sensible way that makes the most of their economies of scale. And Connected Curb do seek to be a partner with the councils they're working with, so they can offer all sorts of other bolt-on extras, but they also take a lot of the legwork out of identifying the best sites and dealing with the distribution network operators and that sort of thing, because they are experts in this field. So we're making the most of them, we're making the most of the funding that's available, and I think we're doing everything we can for the time being, but very open to ideas if people have got them about how we can move quicker.
Thank you. I've got a question. I think you mentioned about the timescale that the work will, I don't know if you said it would begin at the end of the year. So when do you envisage, I mean, obviously it's the winter, the weather issues and everything, but when would you hope to sort of see all this be completed?
No, so we're expecting to see them delivered by the end of the calendar year, hopefully. I mean, there may be the odd wrinkle with, if there's a tricky one with grid connection, but now that we've got the sites agreed, assuming we get agreement tonight, we should be able to move forward very quickly.
Thank you. So some very good questions and very well answered. Thank you, Councillor Turner. I will now read the decision, which is Council resolves to add £196,000 to the 2023-24 capital programme for the rollout of electric vehicle charge points in car parks, as recommended by Environment Committee and Strategy and Resources Committee. So I know Councillor Turner is proposing. So do we have a seconder? Councillor Mayfield, do you wish to speak now or reserve the right to speak? You'll speak now. Okay.
Yeah, just want to acknowledge, we're working as fast as we can, and the grid capacity is an issue as well as the topography of our district. I just want to say I very much welcome this report, which shows just how much work Mike Towson and the team have put into meeting this council's request to deliver more EV charging infrastructure across the district sooner. The addition of 24 chargers into car parks, with the potential to upgrade them in future, and with those passive connections as well, will help make our market towns a more viable destination for those with EVs. And I'd urge colleagues to support this recommendation wholeheartedly.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak in debate? No, look not. No, okay. I would just say I'm very pleased to see that we already do have electric charge points in Dursley, but I'm really pleased to see that the council will. I think it sends a very positive message as well, and I'm glad that we finally got there. It seems to have taken quite a while, but I think it's really good that that will be available for our residents, but obviously visitors as well. So, right. So would you like to sum up then, Councillor Turner?
I think you've heard quite enough from me tonight, so I'll just say thank you for all your interest and questions, and hope you're able to support tonight.
Thank you. So we'll move to the vote. No, unanimous. Looks like that's a unanimous. Very good. Thank you, everybody. Right, moving swiftly on to item 9B, which is the Council Plan 2021-2026 refresh. And I'm going to ask Catherine Braun, as the Chair of Strategy and Resources Committee, to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Our Council Plan was approved in October 2021, and the plan sets the overall strategic priorities and objectives of the Council, as well as the key actions we'll take to deliver our objectives. By now, you'll be familiar with a refreshed council plan, which has been approved at all the service committees, and no amendments have been proposed. It's good practice to review the council plan periodically to make adjustments and refinements based on the progress being made, and to allow us to respond to changed circumstances or emerging opportunities. And the review of the plan has been undertaken over the summer. Since the plan was adopted, we've already gone a long way towards delivering our objectives, and this is demonstrated in section 2.4 of the report, which includes some of the key achievements that are specific to this committee and the council. Progress against the whole of the council plan is set out in Appendix A, but recognises the actions underway have been achieved so far. Just a few highlights that I'd like to mention now is around community wellbeing and the support we're providing to 11 community hubs across the district. Our leisure provision at the Pulse, and bringing the operation of Stratford Park Leisure Centre in-house. I work with parish and town councils and development of a charter that's been developed in collaboration with them and has now been adopted by 40 parish and town councils. The work we've done to install water source heat pumps, both here at Ebley Mill and at Brimscombe Port Mills, which was completed in January last year. They seem to be working really well. I'm feeling rather warm this evening, but it's been a very effective piece of technology and certainly saving a lot of carbon as well. The Economic Development Strategy was approved in March 2022 and work is continuing to implement the Economic Development Action Plan. We've also started to engage a lot more with business and thinking about opportunities for inward investment across the district with the launch of the Place Prospectus in April 2023 and a new Ambassadors Programme and newsletter which are now being developed. We've developed the first master plans for Beaches Green and land at Bath Place Cheapside has been purchased with options to further regenerate that area. At Brimscombe Port, we've appointed St Modwen Homes as a selected development partner to work alongside the council and various public consultations are now being developed on that site. Communities, environment and economy continue to be the top priorities at the heart of the plan and there have been no changes to these proposed priorities or the 16 objectives that underpin them. The majority of adjustments that have been made to the actions that sit underneath the objectives. And Appendix A takes you through the current status of each action and any recommended changes that are reflected in the refreshed council plan, which is at Appendix B. The report sets out the categories of key changes within the plan, including replacing key actions, extensions to end dates, significant changes where the previous key action has been redeveloped, and the work that's been done to improve milestones and performance indicators so that performance management right across the council is more effective. I'd just like to clarify here that where end dates have been extended, the original end date is retained and will remain visible on IdeaGen, which is our new system as part of the performance management process. Many additional milestones have been developed to reflect the current status of work being undertaken to ensure accuracy when updating progress and provide details of the next steps to be taken, which is really important for us all as members in following this progress. Significant work has been undertaken to develop a suite of performance indicators under each objective, and Appendix B now sets out the new performance indicators that are recommended. There's still work to be done here to determine when some indicators will be introduced, as well as frequency of reporting, as they're dependent on data being available. The review has highlighted the need to allow us to be more flexible with making adjustments to milestones and sub-actions, as projects will vary over time, and we need to be able to reflect this. Similarly, for performance indicators, it's not possible to introduce them all at once, as some depend on the actions and milestones. It's therefore intended for milestones and performance indicators to be changed and recommended to committee on a more regular basis throughout the performance monitoring process. Finally, members will know that we now use IdeaGen, which was formerly called Pentana, as the performance management tool for the council. IdeaGen training was provided before the summer and refresher training for members will be scheduled towards the end of the year. Thank you to the Council and to all the committees for making such good progress with the Council plan so far. I hope you'll all recognise the positive and necessary adjustments that have been made to ensure we're accurately reporting the work being done and to allow us to continue to deliver against the plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. So are there any questions? No, there aren't any questions. Oh, apologies. Oh, sorry, Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask, on page 62, where it says end dates, the last paragraph where it says, in cases where the deadline has been extended to allow for longer time to progress the action, the original end date will not be overwritten and will continue to be reported in the Council's performance management system. Can I just ask, will that then show as overdue as that being the original date, or will it take the new date as the actual deadline? And then secondly, on page 63, under sub-actions and milestones, the last paragraph says, as outlined in section 3.14, it is proposed that flexibility is given to allow for regular adjustments to milestones and sub-actions, which will be reported through the quarterly performance monitoring reports. I'm just slightly worried with this that if we're having so many adjustments, are we at risk of watering down some of our actions and outcomes?
Thank you, Councillor Green. In relation to your second question, I think this is around making sure the system is more flexible, and we do need to recognise that when the situation changes, when opportunities arise, not just about reducing but perhaps even speeding up delivery in some cases, we have an opportunity to do that. We do rely on performance monitors, and all committee members clearly have a role in performance monitoring through the committee, so any changes that are being proposed would come to committee so that we have an opportunity to review that. And then in relation to end dates, as I understand, and I may stand corrected by the people more familiar with the system than me, that the end dates would continue to be recorded, but if the end date is no longer appropriate, we would be able to track it against a more realistic or readjusted date. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Yes, Councillor Tucker. Questions for the moment. Anyone else? Doesn't look like we do. Okay. The decision is that Council resolves to adopt the refreshed Council Plan 2021-2026, and we have a proposer. Councillor Braun, and do we have a seconder? Councillor Bennett. Do you wish to speak now or? No. Okay. So we are moving into debate now. So if anyone wishes to debate, Councillor Tucker, would you?
Thank you, Chair. Members present at the last two CSNL and SNR committee meetings will be aware that, while supporting the content of the council plan and its refurbishment, I and other members across the chamber had some reservations about the monitoring of the plan. After all, a plan is only as good as the monitoring of its component parts and the valuable lessons learnt afterwards. Otherwise, it is simply a nice to-do list. Since the SNR committee meeting on this 5th of October, I've had meetings with officers to discuss these concerns. Whilst it is accepted that a small number of activities are incorrect in terms of description and start and finish timings, etc., I have been through a completed milestone plan output example, and I am now satisfied that the points I previously raised will be corrected and, in total, included in the forthcoming Idea Gen outputs. On reflection, I think it would perhaps have been helpful for members to have had such an example included in this and previous committee papers for understanding and reference. With these latest explanations, understandings and reassurances from officers, I am now happy to support tonight's resolution, and in doing so I would like to particularly thank Hannah Emery for her extreme patience and time to help me to achieve this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The Labour Group will be supporting this. You know, as the original plan was shaped by the Labour Group, we see it progressing well, and we will fully support the refresh of the plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Oldham.
Thank you, Chair. Just make 3 quick points. My first point is, having been with Councillor Tucker through all of those meetings and another couple of meetings besides, I'm really pleased to hear his speech tonight, and I'm really glad that he welcomes the report now. And also I'd like to echo his thanks to Hannah Emery, who's worked tirelessly on this and so hard. I'd also like to share that I'm really pleased that Hannah said to me that the Youth Council have also seen the plan. I think that's really important, really value our Youth Council and their input for things. And finally, I think knowing how hard our council officers are working and our many partners, including the community hubs, including Citizens Advice and other voluntary sector partners, I'm really, really pleased to see that the cost of living crisis is now reflected in the council plan refresh. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to just... I don't think there's anyone else indicating. Seconder, would you like to sum up or speak? Sorry, to speak, and then I'll move to proposer to sum up.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just very quickly say that, it's been really good to see the progress that's been made over the last 2 years. And I hope everyone can agree to adopt this refreshed council plan. A lot of work's gone into it. And I'm really pleased with the outcome of this refresh. So I hope everyone can vote in favour. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Braun, as proposal, would you like to sum up?
Very briefly, I just thought we had an excellent plan previously, which was very detailed with lots of objectives, and now it's just taken it to a whole new level. And we have really the tools that we need to do performance monitoring, to really understand progress and where we need to put additional resource and support, and the areas that are going well. Similarly, I'd just like to thank the officers who've been involved in leading this. I know it's involved discussions with practically every team across the council about the appropriate indicators, actions, sub-actions, milestones, and that work will be ongoing from now going forward. Thank you particularly to the team, to Hannah, to Sarah and the whole team who've been leading this, and to everyone who's participated, and I hope everyone will support it this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. We shall move to the vote now. It's unanimous. Very good. Thank you, everybody. Right, we'll move on now to item 9C, the Local Authority Housing Fund and HRA Acquisitions Budget. Councillor Braun, are you going to introduce it?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to introduce the Chair of the Housing Committee to present this report.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Chair. With all the discussion we've had here tonight and the council plan, you've heard what good news there is here, and there's a bit more good news here as well. This is a really good news story, I feel, for the council. This report, which won unanimous support both at S&R and Housing Committee, now seeks Council's approval to increase the HRA property acquisitions capital budget. That took a lot of saying, sorry. As members will be aware, this council has been very proactive in bidding for the local authority housing fund for the purchase of accommodation for people fleeing conflict, and has been successful in both rounds. Round 1 for 1.8 million and round 2 for 578k for a further 4 properties, all of course to be match funded by the HRA, as all these properties will eventually become part of our housing stock. This latest round 2 is for additional properties for Afghan families, so it's particularly important to buy larger houses which they require. Round 1 including Ukrainians, if you recall. Because of the very short time scale to apply for the bid, the September Housing Committee agreed to delegate authority to the Head of Property Services in consultation with both Lucas and myself to acquire these homes. And here I really must congratulate our officers, the team, for their sterling work in finding and acquiring suitable houses in the present housing market, and with such speed for these people in great need. It's been an absolutely amazing operation, really. And I have to say something about the timing for the bids, because certainly the latest one, the letter came on the 12th of June, and everything had to be in by the 5th of July, but they did it. The additional funding will allow for the reworking of the HRA budget, giving it the flexibility for any additional work that is required for any adaptations, etc. And I know that question was asked at S&R, and I'm glad to be able to confirm that here tonight. So I would just urge you to vote for this. It's a really good, it's a feel-good story, and I really thank the officers, Alison Fisk, Lucy Clothier and Pippa Stroud, who all put this report together for you tonight. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ross. Are there any questions? Yes, Councillor Green.
Thank you. On page 84 at 2.4, bullet point 2, it says 3 properties have had offers accepted and solicitors are instructed, with 1 expected to have completed by the date of council. Do we know if that has completed?
All I do know is that they are on track, and I don't know at this moment in time whether it has been completed. My fault, I didn't check today, but I'll let you know.
Thank you. Councillor Baker.
Hello. First of all, I'd also like to congratulate the officers on getting that second bid in so quickly. I mean, it's great to be able to, first of all, notice it so quickly and also take advantage of it. And that's what we've come to expect and really appreciate from the officers. But my question is, how flexible are these houses? For example, if we bring 23 more properties into the stock, do we have to use those particular properties for the families, or could we use other ones so long as we use 23?
I think there is flexibility in all of this, but I will come back to you on what exactly is happening here.
Okay, thank you. Oh, yes.
Just say that we've got an update.
Oh, sorry, we do have an update from, do you want to speak? Yeah.
I've just had an update from Lucy, who is watching. One property did complete this week.
Yes, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Matty, do we have any idea of the range of size of houses that these are? Are they starter homes, 2-bed, 3-bed mansions? And what is the age of them, please? Are they going to need a lot of maintenance, or are they more or less move in straight away?
We haven't had anything official. I have obviously had some conversations with Head of Property Services about what sort of properties they were looking for. And it's basically, quite a lot of them are council houses that they've bought back because they were very good standards of building in most of them. I leave aside the Woolaways and the non-trads, but a lot of them were very good houses. As you probably know, the Afghan families do need larger properties because they have intergenerational sort of families. So they have, I know, I was informed today that they are now looking at a possible 5-bedroomed house because they are quite rare in the type of what our budgets are set for. But they on the whole, they're basic family homes. Some, as I say, larger than others of necessity.
Thank you.
Sure, we will get a good report sooner or later.
Thank you. Any other questions? I don't see any. I'm just conscious it's nearly 10 to 10 and it's unlikely we're going to finish all the agenda by then. So I think should we take a vote at this point? So councillors, I need to take a vote if you're happy to extend the meeting beyond 10 o'clock. I think, can we do it with a show of hands? If you're happy to extend beyond 10, just need you to vote yes if that's acceptable. Is that enough people? Okay, it's carried. Thank you very much. So if there aren't any more questions, I will read out the decision, which is council resolves to increase the HRA property acquisitions capital budget 2023-24 to £6.72 million as set out in this report and as recommended by Housing Committee and Strategy and Resources Committee. We have a proposer, Councillor Ross, and a seconder, Councillor Schumacher. Thank you. Do you wish to speak now or reserve the right to speak later? Speak, okay. So we'll move into debate now. Anyone who wishes to speak on this item? Nobody wishes to speak. I would just like to say a word. I know we just had the awful news today about how Pakistan was going to expel all its immigrants, many of whom are Afghans. So at least we were able to provide a home to some of these families. I know it's not a large number, but it means a lot. I had a message just today on a different issue, but around someone who'd worked very much with the Syrian families and how well settled they are. And so I think that's a really good example. We've done it before, and it's really wonderful to see that it's only a few, but at least we are able to help those families. So I think that's really great that we're able to do that. I think we'll just thank you all for all the work you're doing on it. I'll move to Councillor Schumacher. Do you wish to speak now?
I think I've in a way little to add to the fulsome description that Councillor that Ross has made, but I would like to say that it's my observation that a lot of these properties that we now buy in order to satisfy the need of these people fleeing conflict are in fact ex-council homes that were acquired under the right to buy. And I think it's a sad story that we've been selling off all these homes where we could have been providing even many more people with an affordable home. And we've talked in the beginning of the evening about infrastructure, the fact that we've got to, or the officers have to do this in a week. Yeah, you get notice of this offer being available, of bidding for some funding, and then only having a week to sort it all out. It doesn't speak for genuine good governance or infrastructure. But I really welcome the work that the officers have put in and making it all happen.
Thank you. Councillor Ross, would you like to sum up?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I didn't expect a lot of debate tonight. We've debated it in several times beforehand, and I know it's been said by some of you over there that what a generous government we've got, giving all this money, and we hear lots of that. But bids have always got to be worked up in a very quick time, taking up much needed officer time, and though we have a really good proven record of getting this money, it means that others lose out. And I really have to finish up by saying, would it be that this government gave the same, extended the same sort of feeling to other refugees and asylum seekers? And I'm sorry, I feel very emotional about this, and I shouldn't be, but I wish they would. That said, I just very much hope you'll all vote for this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for those words, Matty. So we shall move to the vote now. Thank you, that's unanimous, which is really good. So, we'll move on to item 9D, which is the budget strategy for 23-24 to 27-28. And I'm going to ask Catherine Braun, who's the Chair of Strategy and Resources Committee, to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to say a big thank you to the officers as well for all their work on preparing this report at the outset. So the budget strategy sets out the approach that we will be using to set the budget for the next financial year and for the 4-year medium-term financial plan. Overall, this strategy represents a strong financial position for the Council, with a balanced budget and no reductions in services anticipated over each of the next 2 financial years. The position for 2026 onwards is more uncertain, with no information available about future local government funding. It's hard to anticipate how this is going to develop, and the polls do strongly suggest that we will have a new government by then, and perhaps any new government will place more value on the services delivered by local government and provide more financial certainty to enable us to plan for more than 1 year ahead. At the current time, a funding gap is expected from 2026-27, and speaking to other council leaders from across the county yesterday, of all political colours, this is an issue for all of us and for other councils right across the country. From 2026-27, we would require a change in our financial strategy, but as we don't have any certainty over income figures, and that from that date and beyond, it does make setting a medium-term financial plan extremely challenging. The detailed budget setting process will be reviewing budgets and assumptions across the council, and this will include assessing any new budget pressures as they are arising. Estimated budgets will be presented to policy committees before the settlement, and final budgets will be presented to council in February. For the next financial year, we have some information over our funding position, but we will again be dependent on the local government financial settlement, and generally that comes in late December. So that's likely to be after our policy committees have considered their budget estimates, so more complete proposals will be presented to Strategy and Resources in February. Some key elements to note on the funding relate to the strategy assumes a council tax rise of 2.99% for a Band D property from next April. No changes will be proposed as part of our local council tax support scheme, providing up to 100% support for those most in need. The change in local government funding, expected to result in large reductions in district councils, is now anticipated, as mentioned, for 2026-27. This may require fundamental changes to the level of services, but as noted, we don't have any further information on how that will be delivered nearer the time. The continued delays to local government funding reform have meant that any assumptions are now highly speculative and will be updated when we know details of that reform. Inflation for September has now been confirmed at 6.7%, meaning that in line with the current budget strategy of rent rises, a rent rise of 7.7% will be considered as part of the budget setting process at Housing Committee. All of the funding numbers are estimates at the current time and are subject to change when the settlement details are known. In terms of inflation, we have great uncertainty in terms of inflation with the budgets about the local government pay, as the pay award for this current year has not yet been agreed, and that makes it more difficult to consider potential increases next year. In this strategy, we've assumed a pay increase of 5.6%, which is in line with the current estimates. The level of CPI inflation remains high at 6.7%, and again, this requires considerable inflation increases to contracts, albeit the new procurement arrangements for energy costs are expected to generate savings. The fees and charges, including car parking, we're looking for this to increase by an average of 5%, which is slightly lower than the current level of inflation. And the final list of fees and charges will be brought forward to Council in February. We've included indicative additional budget sums for supported housing, lower carbon fuels for both heating and the Ubico fleet, as well as investment in the customer contact centre. We hope in the budget setting process to bring forward additional areas for investment in our refreshed council plan, and any such increases will be considered at the final budget setting time in February. The financial resilience of councils is a major headline on a constant basis at the moment. The budget strategy sets out that the district council can set a balanced budget without drawing on general balances for the next 2 financial years. So as stated, the position after that is very much less clear, but the long-term strategy of maintaining an equalisation reserve to cope with changes in funding formulas and a business rates reserve in anticipation of a growth reset will allow for any changes in future spending to be phased. This budget strategy represents the opening stage of the detailed budget setting work, and officers are already working on accurate estimates across council budgets, and these will be considered by committees in the next phase of meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions on this report? Yes, Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed on page 103 under budget pressures that Kingshill House still keeps cropping up. And I remember going back to 2018 when money was put in the budget, hopefully to pass that over to the trustees there. And I believe we put some money in to upgrade the flat so that there was revenue coming in. I just wonder just how long it's going to be before, you know, we actually pass that over to the trustees. And is somebody working on that to see that that happens? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Robinson. I understand that a paper is going to be coming to Strategy and Resources Committee on 23rd of November, and we'll be looking to consider the longer term lease for Kingshill House. I know some very positive discussions have been held with the new chair of trustees and the board, and they're developing a really excellent programme of activities and really making the most of that site. And I'm really pleased to see that it's thriving. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else has any questions on this? No, it doesn't look like we do. So I'll read out the decision, which is Council resolves to approve the budget strategy on draft MTFP 2023-24 to 27-28 as set out in this report and appendices and as recommended by the Strategy and Resources Committee. Do we have a proposer, Councillor Braun, and a seconder, Councillor Bennett? Thank you. Do you wish to speak now, Councillor Bennett? Or after? Okay.
Thanks, Chair. No, I would just say it's really pleasing to see the strong position that the council is in at the moment, and particularly when you look around the country and the situation that other authorities are experiencing with their finances. I'd just like to thank Andrew for all his hard work and for preparing this report that's very clear and sets things out very clearly for all of us to have a look at. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you wish to sum up then, Councillor? No, we've got to. Oh, I've done the debate, have I? Apologies. Yes, sorry, it's debate now. Apologies, it's debate now. And Councillor, no, did you wish to speak? Yep.
Yes, sorry. Yes, it was. I'm fully conscious these are estimates. I'm also fully conscious of the fact that Treasury management has been very good in this council, and its estimates are normally very close to the mark. However, I have to make 2 points before we feel too happy about things. One, we still carry £97 million worth of debt we've got to pay, which has been pushed out now for 60 years when it was 50 when it started. And the second thing I wanted to remind people is that we're looking now at the reduction in the equalisation reserve, which I was pleased to hear the leader suggest would be maintained. The question is quite how, because you've got to put something in there, so where we're going to get it from is another question. And to remind those of us who look at these things fairly closely, that actually the reserve we expect to see at the end of the medium-term financial plan is £2 million as a round figure. It may shock some of you to know that used to be 1 million and was considered quite a lot then. It's now 2 and rising. And that effect starts to happen much sooner than we would expect. We're looking at 26, 27, 3 years away. We need to think sooner, I think, than we are at the moment. And I would advise people to have a close look at what they're hoping to do, because at some point the reckoning will come home. I do agree we are in a very strong position at the moment compared to others. But if you happen to be in a boat that's sinking, there's not much point in joining it, is there? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Ross.
Well, how do you follow that? Nice gloom and doom. Well, I just think, we are in a good position. We're still supporting people. I'm really glad to see that council tax, we're still supporting those most in need. However, on the HRA, it is a bit of a different story, and I'm eternally glad that we've got the expertise of Lucy Clothier, who keeps us all in line, along with Andrew, of course. But there are going to be some hard choices coming up about how we balance the books, because with rising costs and rising salaries all the time, and rents and not being able to rise at the same rate, there are some hard choices to be made. But we will work with our tenant body on this, and I'm quite confident with the teams that we've got now, headed by our new strategic head. Well, he's not that new, but he's new to some, because I don't think you've met him yet, Chair, have you? I feel quite confident that we go on. And thank you, Catherine, for presenting this tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Anyone else who wishes to contribute? Yes, Councillor Rubin.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to quickly point out that actually what Andrew and his team are doing is really not much short of a miracle, and that people have this perception, especially in the sort of media, that councils just waste their money. But actually, it's really important to say that since 2010, 60p out of every pound of local government funding has been cut by the national government. And this is no way to continue and to carry on being able to serve our communities in the way that we really need to. So thank you, officers, for all your hard work. And thank you, Leader, for presenting this report.
Thank you. Councillor Tipper.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I can still remember when we had a similar address from Councillor Kennedy some years ago. And I respectfully suggest to this council that you take heed of his warnings. We had the opportunity to pay off some of the 96 million, I think, that we borrowed back in my day when I was chair of audit. And the HRA borrowed the money and we had the opportunity to pay it off. I know it's a very low percentage anyway, but we had the opportunity to pay some of it off and prepare a way going forward for families and communities that reside in this area. If we don't, we're going to be scratching our heads. I'll put it that way. All well said, Nigel.
Thank you. Anyone else wishes to add to the debate? I don't think so. So I will, sorry, I got confused because Councillor Bennett spoke earlier in the debate. So, but I will go to you now, Councillor Braun, to sum up. Thank you.
Just very briefly, thank you all for your comments this evening. It is quite an important moment. I know it's late in the evening. We're talking about the financial strategy and the financial viability of the council and the ability to deliver on our council plan and our priorities over the next year and beyond. I said at the Strategy and Resources Committee, it's slightly like financial planning in fog because we don't yet have details of the financial settlement. There's so many uncertainties about local government finance, and it's a situation that many councils are struggling with right across the country. So I'm really grateful for all the work that has been done over the years to make sure that Stroud District is in a good financial position and that is ongoing this year. So I'd hope everyone can support it this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we will move to the vote now. Unanimous?
Yep.
Yep, that's unanimous. Thank you. Right, moving on to item 10, which is appointments to committees and positions. And I'm going to introduce this item. So this is a relatively straightforward report. As you can see, the political balance has been recalculated following the change of group membership for Councillor Jessie Hoskin. And I don't know if you've had a chance to pick up, there were some paper copies, or you might have found them electronically, of the amendments to the Appendix A, which shows you the changes to the committees. And it has been published online. You should have all received it. And it is in red highlighted on there. Can I just draw your attention to, there was one small error, which is unfortunately for Ashley Smith. You should actually be taken off Environment Committee. So just so you're clear, that was the one change that hadn't been officers. Sorry? Oh, so audit. Apologies. Am I looking at the wrong one? Yes, sorry, I had written that. Apologies, it is audit. Sorry about that. Yeah, so it was on audit where the change had been made and hadn't been amended in the papers. Otherwise, I think that's relatively straightforward. I don't know if anyone has any questions on that. No. Okay. In which case, I'll read out the decision. Council resolves to approve the changes to committee membership and political balance as set out in the report and the appendix. Someone happy to propose that? Councillor Braun, and second, Councillor Ross. Thank you. Do you wish to speak, Councillor Ross?
No, taken as read, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And we'll move to the debate. Anyone wishes to speak? Councillor Nigel Kennedy.
I won't keep you very long, but I would like to thank those who've been removed from the Audit and Standards Committee and to welcome those who are about to join it. It seems we've lost quite a few one way and another in the last sort of 6 months. So thank you all of you who are going to join us, and welcome to those who are now going to join us. That's all I've got to say. Thank you very much.
Anyone else wishes to contribute to the debate? No. Councillor Braun, do you wish to sum up? No. Okay. In which case, we'll move to the vote. And I think that's unanimous. Just can I indulge you just for one moment? And the leader wished to say something which we very badly forgot to say right at the beginning of the meeting. Would you like to councillor to speak just for, it'll be brief.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair. It was just to let everyone know that Councillor Norman Kay has sent his apologies to this meeting and he's going to be away for some time. He had a serious and unexpected heart surgery on the 28th of September. So he received excellent treatment at the specialist heart unit in Bristol. I had an update from his wife Kate this afternoon, and he's doing really well. She said he's in good heart and he's recovering well and hoping to be transferred to Gloucester Hospital to continue his recovery there. He is back on his emails, catching up with the news, and really happy to stay in touch with people. Clearly, he doesn't have quite the same energy having had such a serious operation, but he'd be very pleased to hear from anyone if you'd like to get in touch. And he's recovering well, and I just thought it would be a nice moment this evening for everyone to send him all of our good wishes for a very speedy recovery. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and safely travelling home.